They said I was just the tech girl. Then used my invention to save the family business and tried to buy me off with $5 million. They said I was just the tech girl. Then used my invention to save the family business and tried to buy me off with $5 million. You're just not leadership material, Lily, my mother observed, her measured tone echoing around the ballroom. Your sister has the presence, the business acumen. You're brilliant with technology, of course, but Vanessa understands people. A silence descended over the crowded gala. Hundreds of eyes focused on our table, investors, business partners, and employees, all seeing my public firing. The gold banner above the stage, celebrating $250 million, seemed to mock me as my mother handed Vanessa a ceremonial check for $1,500,000, her leadership bonus for a corporate change she had no part in. Thank you, Mother. I'm honored, Vanessa responded, standing to collect both the money and the tremendous applause that followed. I kept my smile on, raised my champagne glass in a toast while something cold and hard solidified in my chest. 6 months of sleepless nights. Thousands of lines of code written in my apartment after long workdays at the office. A revolutionary inventory management system that had single-handedly saved Anderson Supply Chain Solutions from bankruptcy. All credited to my sister, who couldn't write a line of code if her life depended on it. My name is Lily Anderson, and I am a 29-year-old software developer with an apparently invisible kid. Despite having just salvaged my family's 70-year-old firm from bankruptcy, Anderson Supply Chain Solutions had been losing money for years, with our outmoded technologies unable to compete with more technologically savvy competition. When our largest client threatened to depart, taking 40% of our business with them, I saw an opportunity to finally demonstrate my value to the family. The Symbios app I created transformed our entire business model, resulting in a streamlined structure that not only retained our existing clients, but also recruited dozens of new ones. In 6 months, we went from near bankruptcy to $250 million in revenue, a 400% gain. Tonight was meant to be my moment of recognition. Instead, I was patted on the head like a good pet, while Vanessa, with her MBA and natural charisma, received the keys to the kingdom I had saved. Speech! Someone cried from the audience as Vanessa approached the microphone, her smile gleaming under the ballroom lights. Anderson Supply Chain Solutions has always been about family and innovation, she told me. The app that has transformed our business was truly a team effort, though I must acknowledge my sister's technical contribution. I politely nodded as she described 6 months of innovative software development as a technical contribution. As the evening progressed, I moved through the audience, taking congratulations from those who knew who had built Symbios, regardless of my mother's public story. What no one realized, not my mother, Vanessa, or anybody else in the beautiful ballroom, was that I had never really transferred ownership of the software to Anderson Supply Chain Solutions, a detail that would prove critical tomorrow morning. The Anderson family had been in the logistics business since my grandpa began carrying construction supplies in a single truck after World War II, and each generation had grown the company, with my mother taking it national in the 1990s. It was always thought that Vanessa, who was 5 years my senior, would eventually take over. She had a business degree, a professional personality, and, most significantly, our mother's full trust. I was the family outlier, more interested in computers than corporate meetings, happier coding alone than networking at business events. My father, before his death 10 years ago, was my champion. Lily sees the future, he would inform my mother. She understands systems in ways the rest of us never will. After Dad died, I honored his faith in me by pursuing a computer science degree, and then a master's degree in artificial intelligence, believing that my skills would someday find a home in the family firm. But when I returned with my credentials, Mother demoted me to the IT department, where I would support our obsolete systems rather than modernize them. We're a logistics company, not a tech startup, she'd say whenever I mentioned modernization. Let's stick to what we know. Vanessa, meanwhile, was being prepared for leadership by shadowing our mother in executive meetings and representing the company at industry gatherings. I didn't mind her attention. She was good with people and skilled at networking, which was crucial to our firm. What bothered me was how my personal contributions were continuously reduced, with my technological expertise viewed as a weird hobby rather than a commercial value. 6 months ago, when our largest client threatened to quit due to our archaic tracking systems, I saw an opportunity. I approached Mother with a proposal. Give me 6 months to develop a proprietary app that will revolutionize our supply chain management. "We don't have the budget to hire a development team," she stated dismissively. "You don't need one, I can do it myself." She had laughed at that. Actually, I laughed. Before Vanessa intervened. "Let her try, mother. What do we have to lose at this point?" It wasn't a resounding recommendation, but it was sufficient. I was given a limited budget and a 6-month time frame. What neither of them knew was that I had been working on the project for about a year, constructing the framework in my apartment on evenings and weekends. I worked formally for several days before continuing to code late into the night. I recorded everything, every line of code, every decision, and every milestone, partly as a matter of good development practice, and partially because Vanessa's help had felt calculated rather than supportive. The project was my chance to finally establish my worth to the family firm, but I wasn't so stupid as to believe professional envy couldn't exist between sisters. Still, I never expected tonight's utter disregard of my effort, or the terrible knowledge that my family may never regard me as more than technical support. The morning following the gala, I arrived at the office early with the intention of clearing my mind before the expected discussions about Vanessa's leadership transition. The development lab I had been utilizing was tucked down in the basement of our Seattle offices, out of sight, much like my contribution to the company's existence. As I walked into the lab, I was astonished to see Vanessa already there, inspecting the whiteboard where I had drawn the Symbios design. Throughout the whole process, she had not made a single visit. "Morning," I answered, putting down my laptop bag. "Admiring your handiwork?" She was gracious enough to appear embarrassed for a brief moment. "Don't be like that, Meg. Last night was business, not personal." "Taking credit for my work is pretty personal from where I'm standing," I shot back. Vanessa moaned and perched on the edge of my desk. "Look, I know you did the technical heavy lifting, but Mother's right. This company needs a face people trust. Someone who speaks their language. The clients relate to me. And that justifies the bonus, the promotion? Acting like you had anything to do with developing the app that saved the company?" I refuse to believe. "The app is company property, developed by an Anderson employee for Anderson Supply Chain Solutions," she explained, her tone moving from conciliatory to businesslike. "Your salary was compensation for that work, just like any other project." The statement struck me like a physical blow, not because they were harsh, but because they demonstrated how utterly my family disregarded both me and modern business realities. They truly assumed that the software belonged to the company because I was an employee and an Anderson. "I wanted to give you a heads up," Vanessa said, evidently misinterpreting my silence as consent. "Mother's announcing the new executive structure this morning. You're being promoted to Chief Technology Officer." "CTO?" I asked, caught off guard. "It's a significant title increase from IT manager," she explained. "And a 30% raise. We recognize your contribution, Meg, truly. But the company needs clear leadership, and that means you," I concluded. "Because I'm just a tech person." She stroked my shoulder as she stood to depart. "I knew you'd understand. The board meeting starts at 9 o'clock. Try not to be late. It looks unprofessional." After she had left, I sat at my desk, staring at the intricate system architecture on my whiteboard. All those nights, all that ingenuity, reduced to being the tech person who should be glad for a promotion while my sister reaped the real power and pay. I opened my laptop and went to a folder labeled Symbios Legal. Inside was documentation I'd prepared months ago but hoped I'd never need. Copyright registrations, timestamps of development milestones, the GitHub repository proving my sole authorship, and most importantly, proof that I had built the majority of the app on my own time and with my own equipment. I had thought that my family would see my worth on their own. That hope died in a very public way last night. Now it was time for Plan B. I took out my phone and dialed the number I had saved but never intended to use. "Heather, it's Lily Anderson. I need your legal services after all. How soon can you come to my office?" At 8:55 a.m., I stood outside the boardroom with Heather Preston beside me. As one of Seattle's best intellectual property attorneys, her mere appearance would convey a message, but the documents in her leather portfolio would accomplish far more. "Are you sure about this?" Heather inquired calmly. "Once we walk in, there's no going back to the way things were with your family." "The way things were wasn't working for me," I told you. "And judging by last night, it never will." At precisely 9 a.m., we entered the boardroom. Mother sat at the head of the table, with Vanessa on her right. The remaining positions were filled by board members, most of whom were longtime Anderson Supply Chain Solutions supporters. Everyone turned to Heather, apparently curious about the stranger in the power suit. "Lily, you're just on time," Mother replied, her grin barely reaching her eyes. "And you've brought a guest." "This is Heather Preston, my attorney," I explained, taking a seat across from Vanessa. "I believe the first item on today's agenda is the new executive structure, which directly concerns me." The temperature in the room appeared to decrease 10 degrees. Mother's smile faded completely. "I wasn't aware you felt you needed legal representation for a family business discussion," she remarked with a frown. "I didn't either, until last night made it clear that family and business have very different definitions in this company." Mother glanced at the other board members, evidently attempting to keep control of the narrative. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately first, Lily." "Actually, I think the entire board should hear this," I said. "After all, they have fiduciary responsibilities to the company, and what I'm about to share directly impacts Anderson's primary asset." Heather opened her portfolio and handed out copies of a document to everyone at the table. "This is a preliminary licensing agreement for the Symbios application, which legally belongs to Lily Anderson as its sole creator and copyright holder." The room exploded into bewildered murmuring. Vanessa grabbed the document, her face flushing as she studied the contents. "This is absurd," Mother exclaimed. "The app was developed for Anderson Supply Chain Solutions by an employee. It belongs to the company." Heather stayed completely calm. That would be accurate if development had taken place solely during company time, with business resources, and within the scope of Miss Anderson's work duties. However, as the data we've compiled shows, around 78% of development took place on Miss Anderson's personal time, with her personal equipment, and much outside the scope of her employment as IT manager. She created a second, thicker document, outlining my development path, replete with timestamps, commits, and proof of when and where the work was completed. "This is a family company," Mother said, her composure melting. "We don't need these legal games." "I'm not playing games," I explained gently. "I'm protecting my intellectual property while still trying to benefit the company. The licensing agreement is extremely favorable, much more so than you'd get from any third party." "You're holding your own family hostage," Vanessa charged, tossing the licensing agreement down on the table. "After everything we've done for you?" "What exactly have you done for me, Vanessa? Take credit for my work? Accept a bonus for my innovation?" One of the board members, Harold Jameson, a tech venture capitalist and friend of my father, cleared his throat. "I'd like to review these documents before we proceed. If Miss Anderson's claims are valid, we need to approach this carefully." Mother seemed misled by his sensible response. "Harold, surely you're not entertaining this rebellion." "It's not rebellion, Eleanor. It's business. And if your daughter has created valuable intellectual property, she has the right to protect it." He looked at me. "Though I must ask, what are your intentions, Lily? What outcome are you seeking here?" Before I could respond, Mother interjected. "Her intention is clearly to extort money from her own family by threatening to pull the technology that our clients now depend on." She gave me a cold glare. "Is that it? You want more money? A bigger title?" The allegations stung, but I maintained my voice level. "What I want is recognition of my contribution and a fair stake in the company's future. The Symbios app isn't just an improvement to our business, it is our business now. And I'd like a say in how it evolves." The battle lines were drawn, and the looks on my mother and sister's faces indicated that this was only the beginning. Heather patiently provided evidence of my ownership rights during the emergency board meeting, which lasted into the afternoon. Harold and two other board members with technical backgrounds posed incisive questions, clearly taking the situation seriously, while Mother and Vanessa became increasingly agitated. "Even if, and this is a substantial if, Lily has some technical claim to the software, withdrawing it now would destroy the company," Mother told me. "That would hurt everyone, including Lily herself. This is nothing but a tantrum because she wasn't named CEO." "I'm not threatening to withdraw the software," I reiterated for the third time. "The licensing agreement ensures Anderson Supply Chain Solutions can continue using Symbios without interruption. I'm simply establishing that I own the intellectual property and should have appropriate compensation and authority over its development." "Which conveniently undermines the leadership structure announced last night," Vanessa explained. "If you control the app that runs our entire operation, you effectively control the company, regardless of titles." Her assessment was correct. which is why my family should have explored the ramifications before utterly discounting my contribution. Harold called a quick recess, and the board members left, leaving me alone in the conference room with Heather. Through the glass walls, I could see Mother and Vanessa having an intense conversation with the company's chief counsel, who had been summoned mid-meeting. "They're going to counter with something," Heather threatened. "Stay focused on your primary objectives." When the conference resumed 30 minutes later, Mother's countenance had changed from wrath to calculation, a sight I recognized from innumerable business negotiations I'd observed growing up. She was shifting to a new plan. "After consulting with counsel, we acknowledge that Lily may have certain rights regarding the Symbios application," she continued, her words evidently painful to say. "In the interest of family harmony and business continuity, we're prepared to offer a generous settlement." The company's attorney circulated counter-proposal documents, which included a one-time payment of $5 million in exchange for the entire transfer of all rights to the application. "This is 5 times the bonus awarded to Vanessa," Mother emphasized. "A clear recognition of your technical contribution, while allowing the company to move forward under stable leadership." For most people, $5 million was a considerable sum of money that could change their lives. But Symbios was more than simply code. It was my aim to alter not only Anderson's supply chain solutions, but perhaps the whole logistics sector. The app I had developed was worth significantly more than $5 million, both monetarily and strategically. Before I could react, Harold spoke up. "I've reviewed the technical documentation, and I have to say, Lily's work goes well beyond what I'd consider a standard employee contribution. This isn't just an app. It's a complete reimagining of how logistics can function in the digital age." Several other board members nodded, and I felt a sense of satisfaction that my labor had finally been understood. "However," he added, "fragmenting ownership of such a critical system creates untenable business risks. If we're acknowledging Lily's ownership, then we need to address leadership directly." "What exactly?" Mother inquired sternly. "Meaning we should consider whether our traditional leadership succession plans still make sense given this new reality." The unspoken suggestion, that I could be a better fit to manage the company than Vanessa, remained in the air. To my astonishment, 2 other board members expressed immediate agreement. Mother's expression darkened. "This board does not dictate family succession. The Anderson family maintains controlling interest, and we have decided—" The company's attorney interjected, looking very uncomfortable. "If the Symbios intellectual property is determined to belong to Lily personally, and given its critical nature to operations, the controlling interest question becomes complicated." At that point I recognized the situation had gotten far worse than I had anticipated. I wasn't just contesting my position in the family structure. I was potentially taking over the entire firm my grandfather had created. Mother also appeared to be aware of the situation. She glanced at me across the table, and for the first time in my life, I noticed something unfamiliar in her eyes. Dread. The meeting ended with tension thick enough to cut. Mother asked for 24 hours to assess the situation before reconvening, and the board agreed. Vanessa grabbed my arm as everyone started to leave. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish?" she questioned, her tone low. "Humiliate Mother? Take over the company? Get revenge because I got a bonus?" "I created something valuable, and I want proper recognition for it," I said calmly. "Both financially and in terms of decision-making power for the technology's future." "So it's not enough to be CTO. You want my job too?" I got my arm free. "I never asked for your job, Vanessa. But I did earn a seat at the table where decisions about my technology are made. If that threatens you, maybe you should ask yourself why." She moved back, her face stiffening. "You have no idea what you've started. Mother won't just hand over control of this company. Not even to family." "I'm starting to think I was never really considered family in the first place," I joked. "Just the weird tech person you keep in the basement until you need something." Vanessa's hurt was genuine, and it made me regret my harsh words, despite their validity. Before she could react, her phone vibrated with a text. She took a quick look at it and then gave me an unreadable expression. "Mother wants to see you. Alone, her office. 15 minutes. Heather expressed anxiety after Vanessa left that I would meet Mother without legal assistance, but I told her that I could handle a family talk. "Text me if you need backup," she insisted before leaving. Mother's corner office overlooks the Seattle harbor, with the Space Needle visible in the distance on clear days. When I entered, she stood at the window, her stance tight and tense. "Close the door," she instructed, without turning. I everything as suggested, and then waited. The silence stretched between us until Mother said, still facing the window, "Do you know what your grandfather started with? One truck. He drove it himself. Delivered construction supplies all over Washington state. Slept in it when necessary." She turned to face me. "He built this company with his hands. His determination. Your father expanded it through relationships. He knew everyone in the industry. Remembering their children's names. Send cards on birthdays." "I know the family history," I said. "No, you don't." She stopped me off abruptly. "You know the sanitized version we tell at company events. You don't know how many times we nearly went under. You don't know that your father mortgaged our house, twice, to make payroll during recessions. You don't know that I once went 3 years without drawing a salary so we could afford to modernize our warehouses." She went to her desk and unlocked a drawer, taking out a big binder. "You think this is about an app? About who gets credit? It's about 70 years of Anderson blood, sweat, and sacrifices." She slapped the folder down on her desk. "Your technology is impressive. Revolutionary even. But an app can be copied, improved upon, replaced. What can't be replaced is this company's reputation, its relationships, its people." I approached her desk warily. I never wanted to damage the company. "Then what do you want, Lily? Tell me exactly what outcome you're seeking here." This was the same question Harold had asked. But coming from my mother, it had a different weight. For the first time, she appeared to be actually inquiring rather than assuming. "I want to be valued for what I contribute," I stated plainly. "Not just with money, but with a voice in the company's direction. The app isn't just a tool, it's a new business model, and I want to help shape how it evolves." Mother observed me for a while before opening the folder. Inside was a new proposal, this time for a firm restructure, rather than a buyout. Then perhaps Anderson Supply Chain Solutions should evolve as well. The document proposed a daring reorganization. Spin off the technology into a separate firm, Anderson Tech, which would license the software not just to our family business, but also to other companies in the industry. The proposed CEO for this new venture? Me. It was not a concession, it was a struggle, and the stakes had suddenly risen dramatically. The following morning, the board reconvened with a more extensive agenda. Mother stood at the head of the table, commanding the space as she had done for decades. "After much thought and consultation, I'm proposing a strategic restructuring of Anderson Supply Chain Solutions," she said, radiating confidence that I knew concealed deeper feelings. "The success of the Symbios application has revealed new possibilities for our company's future." She presented her proposal to spin out Anderson Tech as a distinct organization under my direction, while Vanessa would continue to head traditional logistics operations. Both enterprises would remain under the Anderson family's umbrella, resulting in a more broad company portfolio. This approach recognizes both the value of our established operations and the transformative potential of Lily's technological innovations, she stated, making eye contact with each board member. When she was done, all eyes went to me. The approach was ingenious since it acknowledged my ownership of the invention while avoiding a complete power transition. It also included various provisions that would ensure my mother maintained ultimate authority as chair of both companies' boards. "Thank you for the proposal," I responded, my voice firm. "But there are some changes required." I indicated Heather, who distributed the counter-proposal I had worked on all night. While I accepted the basic concept of distinct firms, my version gave Anderson Tech clear independence by forming its own board of tech industry veterans, rather than family friends. It further stated that, while the family logistics company would be the major client, Anderson Tech would be free to investigate additional market opportunities. Most importantly, my plan included a clear acknowledgement that the Symbios intellectual property belonged to me personally, together with a license framework that provided appropriate recompense for its usage. "These terms are not negotiable," I concluded. "My technology. My conditions." Harold was the first to speak up. "I think Lily's counter-proposal is not only fair but strategically sound. It positions both companies for growth in their respective spaces." Other board members began to assent, and I watched as the family power dynamic shifted irreversibly before my eyes. 6 months after the restructure, I stood on a separate stage, in a different ballroom, to accept Symbios' Pacific Northwest Technology Innovation Award. Anderson Tech had grown to 30 workers, had 3 big clients outside the family firm, and was expected to generate $500 million in sales by the end of the year. Mother sat at the center table, her look a mix of pride and resignation. Vanessa politely cheered next to her, but our relationship remained strained. The traditional logistics business she headed was stable, but it was no longer the family's crown gem, something she was still adjusting to. Innovation often comes from unexpected places, I stated when I accepted the award. And sometimes the hardest part isn't creating something new, but finding the courage to claim ownership of your creation. After the ceremony, Mother approached me. Her normally strong presence somehow weakened among the tech-focused throng, where her decades of logistics experience held less weight. "Your father would be proud," she remarked quietly. "He always said you saw systems differently than the rest of us." "Thank you," I said, shocked by the genuine feeling. "That means a lot." She looked around at the tech professionals who were networking nearby. "I underestimated this world. And you. I won't make that mistake again." It wasn't quite an apology, but Eleanor Anderson came as close as anyone ever did. As she walked away, I felt an unexpected lack of triumph. The vindication I had envisioned tasted different in reality. Less sweet and more nuanced. I had gained notoriety, independence, and the freedom to pursue my vision without constraints. But the process had drastically damaged my family connections. Harold appeared at my elbow, holding champagne. "To the future of Anderson Tech," he exclaimed, raising his glass. "Your grandfather built an empire with a single truck. Imagine what you'll build with a single app." I grinned and clinked my glass to his. "I already am. This is just the beginning." And as I observed the room full of people coming to celebrate the technology I'd invented, I realized that sometimes, the most potent payback isn't about pulling others down, but about climbing to heights they never thought you could achieve, and assuming your rightful place when you arrive. Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story. I'm getting married soon, but my best friend's partner plans to propose at my wedding. I asked her not to, and we argued. Original post, February 21st, 2025. Hi Honorable Judge Charlotte and Potato Queens and Kings, editor's note nickname for Charlotte Dobre fans. I have come seeking your advice. I will accept my judgment. I got married in April. We got engaged at Christmas, but in January my dad was given 5 months max after being taken off chemo for it not working. I will preface this by saying I never wanted the big white wedding. I am not a fan of being the center stage, etc. My best friend, 26F, of 14 plus years, is the polar opposite of me. My partner and I have been super busy with work, so have allowed my parents to plan the wedding. His parents are out the country on hollybobs but have had input. My dad wanted a bigger celebration as this will be the last chance he gets to celebrate. I am obviously heartbroken and want to give him exactly what he wants. I chose my bridesmaids and my partner chose his best man, groomsman. My best friend is one of my bridesmaids and my niece is my other. My bestie from day one of being asked has been finding dresses, not a problem. I've said all along, I just want them to feel comfortable so they can wear what they want. I am paying. Some of the dresses were questionable, but I honestly didn't have the heart to tell her. Men's suits were all chosen and everyone was happy. A little side note here, my parents have never been a fan of my bestie. They think she's an attention seeker and a bit of a tart. They accepted my choice because they know I love her to bits. Last week when we went to see my bestie, she had a baby recently so I love going to see Bubba. She was saying I think her partner, let's call him Paul. Paul is going to propose at your wedding, and getting all excited. She kept saying how she wanted it to be a perfect proposal and we have the perfect venue. That is true. The venue is stunning. On the way home from seeing her, I was talking to my partner and said that I didn't want him to propose at the wedding, as we were already celebrating a wedding and my beautiful daddy, and didn't want to take away from that. I reached out and tried to explain this to my bestie. Her reply, if you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. Here I will input, partner and I have been together 4 years. Her and partner have been together 1 year. Not that this is any sort of competition. But here is where I may be the bridezilla, a-hole. My response. I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla, a-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which were all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love you. You know I don't like major attention but this is my family, My friends and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked out, I'm truly heartbroken. But this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Her last response, I didn't respond. Your dad's gonna die, he won't even be here to give a shoddy. I don't mind losing her over this, but I'm heartbroken and now thinking I may have been a bridezilla. Please help potato kings, queens and everyone in between. Oops comments. Most of Oops comments include screenshots between her and the friend. I have transcribed them below. Ope, all one text. Hey gorgeous. It was so lush to see you and Mr. Roman. He's gotten so big. Can I just air something that's really played on my mind? I absolutely don't want to upset you in any way, and you know I've given you and Savanya free reign with everything from dress, accessories and everything. I also haven't asked you to pay for anything, so you've got a free room for the night and everything paid for. Basically, I'm just a bit hurt that you are planning on getting engaged at my wedding. It's a day that is less about me and more about my dad being able to celebrate with people that cherish him. We are already celebrating two things, the wedding and my daddy. I was just hoping you'd maybe ask Luke to not propose at the wedding. Friend. If you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. Ope, I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla. A-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which we're sick all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love. You know I don't like major attention, but this is my family, my friends, and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked sick out, I'm truly heartbroken, but this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Friend. You dad's gonna die, he won't even be here to give a shit if we get engaged or not. Pathetic edit. Same post. February 24th, 2025, 3 days later. Edit. I thought I'd update as a few common points. I no longer want this girl in my life, let alone the wedding. She's a vile human being. I have always been that one girl she gets at. I've never had much luck making friends, so I think that's why I've always accepted shitty treatment. Partner hates her and has hated her since they met. I am gonna send a message and block, she's done. I'm not sure how to share SS's, but I'll work it out. Update post. So my partner and I reached out to him, asked him to meet in a neutral place. We chose the park near to his house. He agreed to meet us. Alone. Side note, we live about 2 hours apart since I moved out of my parents and we moved to a different city. I travel most weekends to see my parents. I showed him the messages, from the screenshots shown in my last post, and he was raging. Paul was so angry at what had been said, then turned to us and said, I actually wanted to leave her, but was waiting until after the wedding so as to not ruin the day for you and your dad. We had a long chat. Paul and my partner have a lot in common and he's always been lush to the both of us. We drove him home and left. Driving the 2 hours home I felt relieved. I've never felt so stress-free. I had no one to try and please. And who needs an egg-sucking bridesmaid anyway? Paul rang when we got home. They've split up. She tried to deny the messages, but didn't delete them from her phone, so he knew it was true. He told her he was repulsed and was planning on leaving after she'd been unkind to his mom, also ill. Paul wants an amicable split with the baby, so we'll possibly get lawyers involved. My daddy is over the moon. He's heartbroken that I've lost pretty much my only friend, but he's so glad she's gone. He's surviving day to day and we are giving him the best we possibly can. We took him suit shopping and he looks absolutely incredible. My mom hasn't got her dress yet, but we are having a special girls' day out soon. Dresses, spa day, and just overall love. Major updates. Passwords with vendors. Paul is still coming, either alone or with a friend or someone else. He deserves a break. Paul is going to tell her parents, who are massively religious and massively strict and will not tolerate bullies. My husband's affair with his brother's ex led to him leaving, marrying her, and abandoning our kids. I filed for custody and child support. I've, 37F, been with my husband, 44M, for 17 years. We have kids, a dog, and we used to own a business together. He has this friend, who happens to be his little brother's ex-girlfriend, 30F. She's been in and out of our lives since she broke up with my Bill over 12 years ago. Over the last 4 years or so, she's been constantly messaging my husband. She never sends me a message, unless my husband tells her that he's not home and she's on her way. Happened only once in 4 years. She's engaged and has a baby on the way. Both my husband and his friends say they have a brother-sister relationship. My kids don't like her or her kid. Her kid is 7 years younger than our youngest child. They feel like they have to babysit her when she comes over. This is what bothers me about their relationship. I am never included in their conversations online, even when she invites herself over. My husband once told his brother that he thought that she was hot and if he was younger and single he would try to date her. My Bill sent me a message to warn me about their relationship. When I spoke to my husband about it, he laughed it off and told me his brother was jealous. During an intimate moment my husband told me that she was the only person he would ever ask to do a threesome with us. That was never discussed between us before, not even the option of a threesome. When she comes over, she barely speaks directly to me, always to my husband. I have to butt into the conversation for her to even acknowledge me. I'm tired of feeling like the third wheel in their friendship. Last year he gave me one of his old cell phones because mine had broken. He hadn't logged out of his Messenger account, so I used it to my advantage and read their messages at the time. He had admitted to her that he had told his brother that she was hot and that if he was younger and single he would date her. He then told her I wasn't home when he said that and I didn't know exactly what he said. Her response was to send him this emoji laughing face. Ever since, I feel like they both occasionally disrespect me in their conversations. All he does is talk about her. Often. He never makes her wait when she texts him. Yet sometimes when I text him, he takes a half hour to answer me. So tell me, would I be an asshole if I told him that he had to choose between his relationship with me and his friend? Update, 2 months later, we've had several talks over the last few weeks. At first he wanted to work things out. As a matter of fact, he says he never meant any of it and he keeps apologizing for breaking my trust. Now he's being a plain dick. Then he flipped and decided that since I don't want to work on things he left for his brother's house. He hasn't seen our kids in the past month. He talks to them on the phone but that's about it. So far, to piss me off, he's cut mine and the kids' cell phone service, so I had to get us new SIM cards for that because otherwise we wouldn't have phones. He's refused to pay anything in regards to school supplies and uniforms. He doesn't want to give me a dime. He hasn't done his taxes this year, which means I won't get any family allowance, CCTB, which cuts me $1,800 a month on my budget. I was able to sign the kids up for a local school supply distribution. The only thing they don't help with is the uniforms. Thankfully only my older two need uniforms. My oldest has some old uniform shirts that will be passed down to my other child. Which means my daughter will be wearing her older brother's shirts. She's really annoyed by the situation and has been giving me lots of attitude about it, but at the moment I can't afford t-shirts at $35 a piece with the school's logo on it, so she has no choice. Unfortunately uniforms are mandatory. I spoke to his friend as well. I told her everything that was going on. He told her he left me because I cheated on him, which isn't true, and she blames herself for what happened. Personally I just think she was putting on a show. I haven't spoken to her since. If you ask me, I still think she is a hypocrite. Finances are tough. I barely make ends meet. Thankfully food banks exist because once rent is paid, I barely have anything left over for bills and groceries. I still haven't been able to get the money for a lawyer yet. I've tried taking loans, but that didn't go over well. I've tried the borrow sub and that hasn't worked either. Now it's like we're in a state of Cold War. He refuses to talk to me. For the time being. I guess he'll come around eventually. For the kids' sake I hope. I feel like sometimes I'm drowning in all this mess. Edit, lots of comments have come up on this post. I didn't expect as many comments. I've read as many as I can and I'll address a few points. He's gone to stay with his other brother. The second one in the family. My STBX is the oldest of 3. It's the youngest of his brothers who told me what's up. I filed my taxes back in March. He was supposed to file his a few weeks later. At the time everything was good between us and I listed him as my spouse because that's what we've been doing for the past 17 years since we got married. I have to file my next taxes as single. The school uniforms. My oldest kids are in high school. A public high school. Uniforms are mandatory across the school board. I've contacted the school and unfortunately they don't have any low-cost uniforms. They suggested I take a look at local thrift shops. They do have an emergency budget for uniforms, but only if you have recently arrived in the country. I've contacted several lawyers. I know what my rights are. I know how much it's going to cost me to take him to court. He's quit his job, so suing him for alimony or whatever is going to be tough. I don't qualify for legal aid based on previous taxes. It takes at least 90 days of him being out of the family home for me to do anything against him. He's been gone for less than 2 weeks. As for my family, I have had no contact with my parents since 2010. They do not know my younger children, nor do they care. I won't be getting into the reasons why here. His family has always been in low contact with us. His parents have never liked me, and his brother who is staying with doesn't like me either. Edit 2. For those who are saying that the timeline doesn't add up. I left with my 4 kids at the beginning of July to visit my elderly grandmother who doesn't live in the same province as us. It was supposed to give us breathing time to try and work things out. When I came back with the kids, he was already gone. When I was at my grandmother's, he would barely talk to me, but talk to our kids via Messenger. My trip with the kids to my grandmother's is a yearly trip. I didn't know that he would go from wanting to stay and work things out to leaving. I was blindsided by that. Edit 3. I do have a PayPal account. I'm not going to start making posts on FB blasting him. I'm not setting up a GoFundMe either. I don't want him finding anything out. I don't want to get charged with trying to ruin his reputation either. I don't want him to have anything to use against me in court. Comments. Comment 1. Go file for child support at your local courthouse. You can utilize self-help to assist with filling out forms. Also, get some alimony just to be an AH. Comment 2. I would file for divorce and ask for immediate financial support and full custody of the kids as he has had no physical contact with them. Stop playing with your kids' stability and mental health. Move forward and be their parent. Soon-to-be ex can go play with his friends. Update. 7 months later. It's been a long while since I've updated everyone about what's going on. It's been almost 8 long months since he left. Everyone was right when they said he would end up with her. They got married in a civil ceremony on Christmas Day. The only time he asked me for the kids was for 2 weeks during Christmas break. He wanted them there for his wedding apparently. He barely talks to the kids now. The kids text him several times a week to let him know what's up with school and their activities. He barely answers them. When he does, he complains about how I won't let him take them overnight. He still posts pictures of his new family daily on social media. They are still taking weekend trips and all that. I hate how he's flaunting everything for our older kids to see. Our oldest is going to college in the fall, and he's worried about covering his school fees. When he tried talking to his dad about it, his dad told him that now he's almost an adult, so it's not his problem anymore. I did take him to court. I found myself a good lawyer who took on my case for free. We had our first court date last week. It went well. I got full custody of the kids. We have another court date to determine child support. He's still not working legally, so the judge is having a hard time setting an amount for child support. So far all the documents he brought to court show that he is on welfare and that his new wife pays their rent, bills and vacations. I don't buy any of that. Neither does the court. He's ordered by the court to provide documentation that he's done his taxes this year and he has to try and place himself within the job market in a reasonable amount of time, in order to provide for the children he does have. Our next court date is in April. Hopefully he's going to get his shit sorted out. As for me, I'm still working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'll be moving next month with the kids into an apartment in a co-op building. My rent will be much lower than what I am paying now. I'm stressing out about my finances. Moving is expensive. I have to hire a company to help me move all our stuff. Plus with my son starting college soon, summer break and all that, I'm stressed out all day, every day. All I see are expenses coming up. I'm still exhausted all the time. I work more than I am at home with my kids. I hope that within the next year, things get better for us. I've started my own small business online, hopefully that picks up too. I haven't started dating either. I'm not interested in meeting anyone yet. For those of you who wrote to me saying I blew up my life and family and called me the asshole in this situation, I don't think I was the asshole. I deserve better. If I am to ever update this again, it will be on my own page. Comments. Comment 1. I'm proud of you, Op. I know it's tough now, but you will come through on the other side stronger than you were before. Comment 2. His wife will end up paying his child support most likely depending on the state. OP. We are in Canada. They aren't legally married yet. They only did a civil ceremony and didn't have a marriage license. My ex admitted this in court. Their marriage has no legal value for the moment. Knowing how he is, they won't ever get a marriage license. Comment 3. I'm sure in Canada, legally married or not, they may be considered common law partners, depending on how long they've been together. If that's the case, ask your lawyer if they can review their earnings as a household since she's apparently paying for everything. Oop. They have only been together since August or September if my memory serves me right. My wife returned from a work retreat with a hickey. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I'm at a loss. How do I move forward? I'm 27 million. In a fight with my wife, 28 million. We've had fights before but not this bad. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. For context, we're college sweethearts married for almost 6 years. We have a daughter, 4F. Our relationship was never perfect or without challenges. We've faced some family opposition with cultural differences, but we've made it work. She's my first love and my best friend. My wife works in a corporation. Her job has annual work retreats that last for about a week. This year was in Vegas. I usually arrange my work schedule and tag along with her, and we make our own trip out of it. We couldn't this year. Our daughter gets major anxiety traveling long distances. We're working on it, but she wasn't budging, and we decided to choose our battles. So I stood behind and held down the fort at home. The change of plans was a bummer because the trip was part of us reconnecting as both a couple and as a family. My wife's work hours have taken a toll, and her work-life balance leaves much to be desired. We entertained the idea of her skipping the retreat. Attendance is optional, but it's generally frowned upon if you don't, and my wife's making connections in her field. She grew increasingly weird. We have a system if either of us is away for extended periods. We keep in contact. For the first day or so, she was herself, but she grew distant. I'd even text her about important stuff and be left on read while she claimed she never saw my text. Whenever we talked, she was rushing me or our daughter off the phone. These were all times she wasn't involved in retreat activities. We were supposed to have a mini birthday celebration for our daughter over FaceTime. Our daughter was excited. It was something my wife promised her because the retreat overlapped her actual birthday. But my wife backed out because she had people up to her room after a seminar. It was like she wanted my permission to break her promise to our daughter. I told her I wasn't offering that nor making her keep her word. She said I wasn't being fair, and this was a networking opportunity. They were business-oriented and wouldn't understand her stepping away for family time. I said her decision is her decision, but she'd have to explain it to our daughter. She promised her that she'd rain-check the following day. Our daughter didn't understand and cried. My wife ended up hanging up and leaving me to comfort our daughter alone. That whole incident rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. She didn't keep her word for the rain check either. She was documenting the retreat on social media. One coworker, 23 million, was almost in every pic video attached to her hip. In one pic he had his arm too comfortably around her IMO. He's a recent hire in my wife's department. She was asked to oversee him. I don't like the guy. He doesn't know boundaries. Once, in response to a work assignment, he texted my wife that she's exactly the kind of woman he needs to keep him in check. My wife had brushed it off. She feels bad for him because he's not fitting in. She took him under her wing during his first retreat with the team. If I'd questioned, she'd say she was tired or networking. There was always something. But I've seen her at these retreats. This wasn't like her. She was just off. The day before her return home, she complained about a bruise on her neck. She stressed it was a bug bite. I didn't actually see the bruise until she came home. I instantly thought it was a full-on hickey. She kind of brushed it off after making a big deal of it over the phone. I didn't push because our daughter was present. But when I was able to confront her, she clung to her bug bite claim. When I kept pushing, she asked what I was trying to imply. I outright said I believed she had a hickey, and I didn't believe she was being honest with me. We had it out then. She was offended and pissed at the accusation. Infidelity has always been a sore topic. Her family has a history of infidelity. So we had a pretty bad fight, and she accused me of looking to pick a fight due to the incident with our daughter's birthday. I told her it had nothing to do with that and everything to do with a hickey on her neck. The fight ended in an impasse. We're still not recovered. She swears it's a bug bite. But I'm not convinced. I've always trusted my wife. I never doubted her, but this bruise doesn't look like a bug bite. It looks like a hickey. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the Vegas retreat. Now she's been wearing turtlenecks ever since, and we're caught between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. Communication usually prevails for us, but not now. I think my accusation pushed us to a new level of argument. I'm at a loss here. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. I have been to Vegas and never saw a single bug. It is like dry as fuck, desert-like. Not saying they aren't there, but it's not like she was in the Mayan Riviera. This is all super sus. Don't let her gaslight you. She clearly got a hickey, which is dumb as fuck in itself, probably from the idiot who is too inexperienced to know what he was doing, and preemptively came up with an excuse knowing what it would look like. Out of character behavior. Neglecting her daughter. New young guy hanging off her, that is in photos she knew you could end up seeing. What about what you couldn't see? Eyebrow-raising texts. Comment 2. I used to travel regularly to Vegas several times a year for about 8 years, worked for the gambling industry. I have never seen a bug anywhere in the vicinity of Las Vegas. What I did see though was a lot of drunks and infidelity. I'm not saying she cheated. But he's right to be suspicious. Comment 3. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never gotten a bug bite that looked like a hickey. Did she show you her phone or provide any proof that could support her innocence, or just dismiss you? The extra affection is a common move from guilt-ridden cheaters. Even if we stretch the imagination and believe it is a big bite, she wasn't acting trustworthy, nor was she a good mother while she was in Vegas, and she needs to address and correct that. OP. No, I haven't had access to her phone. We usually have an open phone policy, but it's not something we've ever really done. I'm sure it'll be another argument. Yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday, and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it, or hang up on them while they're crying. I'm not insecure. My wife's gone on retreats before. We both work outside the home and have the care for our daughter. So it's not an imbalance. My wife's work-life balance is out of sorts. She's in the company of other adults plenty. I've been with my wife on these retreats and other social events. I know how she is. She was off this entire trip, nor was it appreciated her entertaining a coworker who ignores boundaries, having his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming her or something. I trusted her when she said she had a bug bite. I got things to help her treat it when returned. It was only after I saw the bruise in person that there was no mistaking it was a hickey for me, and I questioned her on it. Update, 7 days later. 27 million, wanted to give an update and thank everyone who reached out. The outside perspectives helped. Things are a roller coaster. I'm trying to process. It took a while for my wife, 28F, and me to have any real conversation about the bruise on her neck. We were stuck between arguing and her showering our daughter, 4F, and me with affection. I rarely saw the bruise because she was turtlenecked up. But I did note the healing process from reddish purple to yellow. There wasn't any more discussion about the Vegas retreat. She made it clear she was done talking about it and that she shouldn't need to defend herself to her husband. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I was done being treated like an idiot, and I wasn't sharing a bed with someone I couldn't trust. So I moved into the guest room. Communication stopped. The silences were palpable. Even our daughter noticed. I'm not proud of that. I try keeping her out of fights. My wife came to the guest room one night and asked if we could talk. I could tell she'd been crying. She said she hated the way things were between us. She felt she was losing me either way. I told her I needed complete honesty. She confessed she hooked up with that coworker, 23 million, on our daughter's birthday. The hickey was from him. She was lost in the heat of the moment and didn't realize he was sucking so hard on her neck. By her account, they made out while doing some on top of the clothes stuff, and then he went down on her. It stopped there because he called her by a nickname that I affectionately call her. It snapped her back to the reality of her actions. She went to splash water on her face and saw the hickey. The guy made light of it and made a joke about the hickey being her souvenir. She blew up on him and kicked him out of her suite. Part of the reason she was avoiding me was out of guilt. She said she's coming clean because she doesn't want to hide things anymore. I asked her why she cheated. What was it about that guy she deemed worth risking everything? She claimed it wasn't him specifically, nor is she unhappy with our marriage. She doesn't really know how to explain it, but a part of her feels broken. The more she looks in the mirror, the more she sees her dad, 57 million. A cycle of being consumed with work, distant from the child, and the infidelity he put her mom, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, through. She said her family never talked about anything openly, and how when she was growing up, my mother-in-law never addressed anything with her. I said her parents didn't make her cheat. She chose to party up with a guy who constantly disrespected our relationship. These were all her decisions, and she at any point could have chosen our family. She agreed. She wants to blame her parents but realizes this is on her. She apologized for cheating and for entertaining the guy's advances. She said she'll do whatever it takes to repair. Go to HR, quit her job, counseling, anything. She wants to make everything right. I told her I don't know what right looks like or if that's possible for us anymore. I knew we had our problems, but I thought there wasn't anything we couldn't talk out. She insisted we still could talk it out. We didn't have to give up on us. She tried giving this rally cry for our relationship, but I felt very numb. I said I didn't recognize her. Not just the betrayal of our vows, but also how she treated our daughter. She's like a stranger. She feels she failed as a wife and mom, but she loves us both beyond words and wants our life together and our family intact. I told her I couldn't give her the answer she wanted and thought we needed to separate and reevaluate. She didn't want separation. She felt we should stay together in our home, but I told her a separation was happening. Either she was leaving the home or I was with our daughter. She consented to leaving so as to best not uproot our daughter so much. She asked for our daughter not to be taken away from her. My wife's staying with my in-laws. I know that's difficult in itself because she doesn't have the best relationship with her parents. One of the hardest parts is the shift for our daughter. Right now, she believes her mom's just busy with work per usual. She hasn't questioned it too much. My mother-in-law called the other day. She made no excuses for my wife, but she's advocating for us to work through it. She told me times when she heard my wife describe me as the anchor she always wanted. She believes there's something worth fighting for if I'm open. Despite some family opposition we faced throughout our relationship, my mother-in-law was always a supporter of us. I'm even more at a loss. I never imagined this kind of betrayal from my wife. She was my safe place. I feel numb yet broken. I'm in love with her. That hasn't changed. But I don't see myself, her, our relationship, or our family the same. Everything's more tense because it's fresh. I think this period of separation is for the best. I'm not sure about divorce. I haven't let myself fully go there. I'm not set either way. I don't know where things go from here, but I'm focusing on our daughter and taking things one step at a time. I feel that's all I can do right now. Thanks again to everyone for the support, it's much appreciated. TLDR update 4. My wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. Do you think she is still trickling through you? How would the coworker know your nickname for her? Good luck onwards. OP. Also think about this part of your comment whenever your wife tells you she is sorry. Cheating on you is one thing, but your wife's behavior towards her daughter is sickening. Comment 2. I was just on a work trip with a coworker who has a couple of little kids similar in age to OP's. He had arranged his travel times to make it easier on them and went back to the hotel to call them every night. Nothing about how the wife is acting is normal or okay. Comment 3. They didn't stop until he came inside your wife. You know that, right? Comment 4. She had plenty of time to craft a story where she was less offensive. He went down on her only? Okay. Comment 5. Yeah, that's a convenient story. It's bad but offers a glimpse of oh it's not so bad she didn't really do anything to him. That's just not believable to me. Also the MIL is not your friend here OP, she's trying to help her child. Again, don't settle for this treatment. I noticed a sudden change in my husband's behavior. He went from being deeply depressed to overly calm and happy, which seemed off. We are going through a really tough time right now and he's been really depressed. Well, he was until 3 days ago when all of a sudden he's all calm, happy. Like a switch flipped and he's absurdly calm, as if he wasn't sad before. It sent my alarm bells ringing but I chalked it up to him just trying to get over his emotions. We live 15 minutes from a big university where both of our children, 21 and 19, attend. They came home randomly yesterday and I was caught off guard. They said their father requested them to come over because he wanted to give them something. He proceeded to give them 2 boxes full of their childhood memories. Teddy bears, photo albums, old toys, etc. It was so odd because they are in college and one lives in a dorm and the other lives in a college apartment with friends. It would make more sense for that stuff to stay here at the house. But he seemed so insistent on giving them these relics from the past and seemed overly happy to do so. Today he stayed home from work. I work part-time and didn't have work today. He's been cleaning all day. He's always helped clean up but today he's doing a deep clean which is something he usually dreads doing. I'm worried. I don't know what this mood switch is and I don't even know what to search on Google. It seems like normal stuff but I know him and this is definitely not normal, especially the suddenness. Does anyone know what could be happening? Has this happened to anybody else? Update, 1 day later. I want to thank everyone who commented. I only had 45 comments when I decided to talk to my husband and hadn't been on Reddit since, so coming on and seeing 300 plus comments is overwhelming. After reading those comments and seeing suicide mentioned so much, I got a knot in my stomach and researched behaviors of someone ready to commit, and sure enough it matched his. I got so mad at myself for being so ignorant to behaviors of mental health crises. I went to talk to him and told him I love him so much and that if he was planning to do something to himself that he didn't have to and that I'd help him with anything. I said much more in a more loving way. He then broke down crying. Guys, I've only seen this man cry once, and that was his father's funeral, and even that was just a few tears. This was more of a cry. Full-on breakdown. I held him and we both cried. He told me that he was broken and didn't feel like he could go on and that we'd be better off without him. I vehemently told him that he was absolutely wrong and that we'd be destroyed without him. We talked for hours and I asked for his permission to call his sister, who is the only person outside of our immediate family that he trusts fully. She came over and we all talked for a while. His sister and I convinced him to let us take him to the ER. Thank you guys for this advice. After the medical and mental evaluation, they concluded he was high risk and they kept him. That opened my eyes to how bad it was. That's pretty much it. They still have him and I'm at home. His sister offered to stay with me, but I told her to go home. She has her own family and I don't want to keep her from them. I don't know what to tell our kids or even I should tell them. I'm lost and worried and just want to help my husband. Comments. Comment 1. You are an absolutely amazing human and wife. Do not assume you should have known. Most of us never even think of suicide as a real thing until it's presented like this. You did the most absolutely right thing by noticing signs and reaching to us. I'm so freaking proud of you. I know it's a lot to carry. You will go through waves of emotion. Please consider popping into a counselor just to talk it out. You will want to be strong for him, but you are human too and this is heavy. Comment 2, very well written. I second this about a counselor or therapist. Although we have to be strong for them, sometimes it is hard to carry and there is nothing wrong with reaching out for any type of crutch during hard times. Comment 3, this post makes my day. I am so happy you got him help. You were able to do the thing that I wish I or someone else had been able to do for my friend. As for you children, you have to keep it age appropriate. With my 10-year-old I tell them my friend was sick and he died and I miss him. With my wife, she knows the whole story. Truth is good for any relationship. Secrets kill. If your kids are older, tell them their dad is struggling with his mental health and you're getting him help. OOP. Our kids are in college so I can be more blunt about it. I'm more worried about if my husband wants them to know, you know? I wouldn't want to divulge this info to them if he didn't want to. Maybe I'm overthinking. My mind is all over the place currently. Comment 4, I would not. He's trusted you, don't abuse that trust right now. It's delicate. He gave you permission for his sister. Let the dust settle right now. Talk to a counselor, tell them together if needed later. But this is a delicate time right now with your husband and his trust in the world. Ope. This is how I'm learning. This is such a vulnerable time for him. I don't want to let them know until I know he's okay with it. I found out my daughter wasn't mine, and that my wife had an affair with my brother for 8 years. They stole $200,000 and planned to run away. I'm writing because I still can't believe what occurred. It all began like any other month. My buddies, Howard, Jeremy, Kyle, David, John, and I, George, have known each other since we were children. We're all in our late 30s and early 40s now. We aim to meet up once a month at my beach property. It's nothing fancy, just a comfy 2-story home that's a little weathered, but it smells like the beach, which I adore. We have an old surfboard hanging on the wall in the living room. We were all into surfing back in the day. Anyway, we all have our belongings. Howard is Mr. Organized, and everything has to be just right. He will mend any picture frame that is even a millimeter off. Jeremy, he is the joker. His jokes can be a little bit harsh at times, but he's a wonderful guy at heart. He has a scar on his arm from a fight he got into years ago, but he never talks about it. Kyle is the quiet one. He's an architect who creates stunning buildings. According to my understanding, he had a difficult upbringing, yet he grew up to be okay. David is ex-military and doesn't say much about his time in duty, but you can tell he's seen a lot. He is constructed like a brick wall. John always seemed to have it all. He's a successful lawyer who always dresses nicely and drives a luxury automobile. You know the type. Our get-togethers are rather predictable. We have an old playlist of music from our college years that we always play. Howard is in control of the grill, it's his nice grill, and no one else is permitted to use it. He is quite picky about his grilling. We normally just hang around, eat, drink some beer, and catch up. Howard was particularly worked up this month. He takes out his phone and shows us a photo of his son, Alan. In the picture, Alan is scowling and appears to be very angry. Howard claims the school principal called him. Apparently, Alan was behaving up, being impolite, not listening to teachers, and his grades were sliding. Howard was beside himself. He continued screaming, "I don't even know who this kid is anymore." He was truly devastated and enraged. We all tried to give counsel, the normal kids go through phases type of thing. Then Jeremy, being Jeremy, cracked a joke. He glanced directly at Howard and said something like, "Maybe he's not yours, man." It was a bad joke, especially given Howard's displeasure. I believe we all squirmed slightly, but it was exacerbated by the fact that he shouted it straight to Howard. Kyle then asked, in his typical quiet tone. "Why don't you all just get a DNA test? Clear the air." He stated it nonchalantly, as if he were recommending we order pizza. Initially, we all laughed it off. It appeared silly, but the more we joked about it, the more we thought, well, why not? The next day, there we were, 6 mature men stepping into a paternity testing clinic. I had to explain to the receptionist why everyone needed tests. It was very embarrassing. I attempted to make light of it, but she just gave me a blank expression. To make matters worse, Howard's brother, Harold, and his 2 nephews were with us. The boys continued to ask questions. "Why are we here, Uncle George? What are they going to do?" It was embarrassing. And, of course, with all of our families present, it evolved into a hugely awkward scene. People were clearly staring. We all took the swabs, paid the cost, and agreed to meet at John's apartment the next week to receive the findings. John's place is the polar opposite of my beach house. It's everything modern, minimalist, and spotless, almost too beautiful, as if nobody lives there. We sat around, attempting to make light talk, but everyone was plainly on edge. Howard took his findings first, as he was the one who initiated everything. He'd been putting on a brave face, but we all knew he was extremely concerned about Alan. The joke Jeremy told had gone under his skin more than he cared to admit. He ripped open the packet, and I watched his expression change from one of fear to one of sheer relief. 99.99%, he exhaled, leaning back into his chair. Alan was his. He even smiled a little, raking his hands through his hair and muttering about how he was going to ground that youngster for a month for causing him such stress. The other findings were as expected, but we kept looking at John, waiting for him to say something. He was unusually quiet, and he was clearly drinking more than he normally did. He was still standing there, and when he finally said, "Jenna isn't mine?" he pushed the paper across the table, his hand shaking so violently that he nearly knocked over his beverage. What made things worse was how John just stood there, staring at nothing, as if he was trying to make sense of figures that couldn't be real. He kept whispering, 25.0%, like a broken record. In some ways, everything went downhill from there. Howard, in shock, knocked over a glass, which smashed on the floor. Jeremy, who had made the initial joke, appeared to want the earth to swallow him whole. Kyle simply closed his eyes, as if he were trying to block everything out. David looked like he was about to punch something. And me? I felt a surge of sickness, relief that my children were mine, and anguish for John. It was simply dreadful. The whole affair seemed strange. We sat for hours. The aftermath was a mess. John's wife, Alicia, went on the offense first. She stormed into John's office. I wasn't there, but I heard about it via John. She was yelling at him, calling him a liar, and making a big deal in front of his coworkers. It was very embarrassing for him. Then she attempted to persuade my wife, Maria, to her side. She came over to our house crying, attempting to create a story about John misinterpreting everything and how it was all a big mistake. However, Maria is quite sharp. She saw through Alicia's ruse quite immediately. Alicia often changed her story, contradicting herself. Maria later told me that she had gotten a horrible sense from her. Alicia's next tactic was to phone Kyle late at night. She was sobbing and virtually asking him to help her, claiming John was ruining her life. Kyle, being the nice soul he is, listened to her for a time, but made no promises. He informed me about it the next day, and we were all beginning to see how manipulative Alicia was. The reality emerged gradually at first. Alicia stated that her romance with John's brother, Stephen, was a one-time occurrence, a moment of weakness. John naturally did not believe her. He performed some research, possibly even engaged a private investigator. He wouldn't tell for certain. He discovered that the relationship was far longer and more involved than Alicia had previously admitted. The ultimate encounter occurred at their home. I was not present, but John informed us about it afterward. Alicia eventually admitted everything. The romance began before their wedding and had continued on and off for years. She also stated that Stephen had major financial issues, and she had been covertly providing him money, John's money. And things got worse. It was more than simply a casual flirtation. They had been meeting in hotels while John worked late, believing he was providing for his family. They even used John's automobile occasionally. They celebrated Jenna's birthday like a couple, snapping photos and pretending to be joyful. Days before John's family gathering, Stephen had been sending Jenna costly gifts that John could never afford, all purchased with money that had been essentially stolen from him. It appeared that he was attempting to buy Jenna's adoration. Is this the lowest blow of all? She would tell John she was working late when, in fact, she was out with Stephen. The financial side of things was completely out of control. These family loans that Alicia had been handing Stephen were massive. He'd squandered his money on gambling, lousy investments, and frivolous purchases like a nice watch and sports vehicle. He stated that these were business costs. Alicia had even forged John's signature on a few loan paperwork. They made bogus invoices and receipts to hide their tracks. John discovered emails between them in which they discussed leaving their husbands and running away together. Everything was laid out in black and white. When everything started spilling out, Alicia began hurriedly phoning everyone, attempting to mitigate the damage. She called me, my wife, and even contacted my parents. It was pathetic. The entire event culminated during Jenna's birthday celebration. It was a spectacular event at a nice restaurant. Everyone was pretending to be joyful. Stephen was present, acting smug and touchy-feely with Alicia. It made John obviously angry. He kept clenching and unclenching his hands while standing near the exit, as if waiting for Stephen to flee. Then, during the toasts, Stephen mustered the courage to stand up and thank John for being such a wonderful brother and provider. He understood it was all a deception. He handed Jenna a very expensive gift, most likely purchased using John's money. He also began bragging to some of the other guests about his own financial triumphs, making John look awful by contrast. That was the breaking moment. John stepped up, took the DNA test results from his pocket, and displayed them for everybody to see. He stated unequivocally, 25.0% probability. He then proceeded to deliver this brief, furious speech, detailing everything, Alicia and Stephen's affair, the falsehoods, and the stolen money. He even showed everyone printed out images of their emails and photos from when they were planning their future together. He made certain that everyone knew about the watch, the car, the extravagant parties, and the fictitious business trip to a tropical island. John's mother-in-law gasped and fainted. His father-in-law attempted to punch John, but fortunately, some other guests pulled him back. Stephen attempted to sneak out the back, but John's father, who, like David, is an ex-military, saw him and knocked him down. It was not pretty. Some individuals attempted to assist, while others simply stood there, mouths agape, watching the entire incident happen. The police were summoned, but they did not take any action. They said it was a domestic disagreement. I later learned that someone had recorded the entire thing on their phone and posted it online. It was not any of us. The consequences were quick and terrible. John's dad was outraged. He refused to speak with Stephen and proceeded to Stephen's flat, where his wife also lived. He grabbed all of Stephen's stuff and put them outside the apartment owned by Stephen and John's father. He subsequently wrote a note to the entire family, stating that he no longer regarded Stephen as son. He did, however, talk with John. He informed him he was disappointed with how things turned out, but he still loved him. Stephen's wife, Kelly, had a different narrative. She did more than just yell, she took action. She promptly filed for divorce and locked all of their joint accounts, barring Stephen from receiving any additional funds. She retained a lawyer and did not stop there. She went to John's house, confronted Alicia, yelled at her, and even smacked her in the face while pulling large chunks of her hair off. I do not condone violence, but I cannot say I blamed her. Kelly eventually began treatment to try to overcome the trauma. John, on the other hand, withdrew. He went to one of his beach houses, not mine, but it wasn't as comfortable for him as it had been previously. It seemed like a prison. He would not answer the phone. He would not see anyone. He ordered meals online and stared at the ocean for hours. He later informed me that he had dreams about the DNA test and the overall affair. He really considered selling the property and committing suicide somewhere in a distant wilderness, but he couldn't bring himself to do so, too many memories. He began drinking extensively to numb the ache. He stopped shaving and changing his clothes. He simply gave up. Meanwhile, Alicia and Stephen were residing at John's house. Apparently, Stephen moved in after getting booted out of his residence. They acted as if nothing had happened. They were seen going on shopping sprees, purchasing pricey clothing and accessories. They were even plotting their escape, working out how to get away from the disaster they had created. It was horrible. They ordered pricey takeout every night while John struggled to pay his debts. They had noisy parties, which bothered the neighbors. Alicia even began remodeling Jenna's room despite knowing she might have to leave at any time. And Stephen, the jackass, began parking his automobiles in John's driveway. John started experiencing panic attacks. Just seeing Alicia and Stephen together triggered them. He stopped caring for himself. He wasn't showering or eating properly. One day, he accidentally smashed a framed photo of Jenna. He wounded his palm badly on the broken glass, but he didn't appear to notice. That's when we, his pals, realized we needed to act. We held a meeting at my residence. Howard brought all of the bank statements and, with John's assistance, the fake documents. He didn't simply show us the documents, he hurled them on the table, scattering them around. He was furious. Jeremy claimed he wanted to bash Stephen up. David, given his military background, even joked about making them disappear. I believe he was joking anyway. Kyle, who is usually so cool and controlled, was visibly angry. We spent hours discussing, fighting, and attempting to figure out what to do. We argued the legality and morality of it all. Howard completed some research, including landlord-tenant legislation and eviction procedures. He came up with an idea. Jeremy would be the muscle, so to speak. David devised a backup plan in case something went wrong. We even developed a code word, pineapple, to indicate that the job had been completed. I was just sitting there, Pikachu-faced, listening to everything. The next step was to get John out of the way and avoid unintentionally turning up until we finished what we were going to do. We didn't simply invite him over for a cookout since it would have been too suspicious. Kyle feigned to seek John's legal counsel on a serious property matter. Given John's occupation, it was a valid reason. We kept John engaged with food and alcohol while also keeping the conversation going, distracting him from what was truly going on. Meanwhile, the rest of us visited John's residence. The confrontation was fierce. Alicia instantly began playing the victim, crying and claiming we had no right to be there. Stephen attempted to seem strong, but you could see fear in his eyes. We took pictures and films of everything, documenting the chaos and the fancy stuff they purchased with John's money. We discovered additional evidence, including images of them on secret travels and documentation indicating that they intended to buy a property together. We didn't just neatly pack their possessions when we were clearing them out. We hurled them out the window, resulting in a massive pile of garments, shoes, and whatever else we could find. Jeremy was raving at Stephen, calling him every term in the book and threatening him if he ever approached John or Jenna again. I discovered a stockpile of valuable items that Alicia had been hiding. I flung it at her feet, saying, "Here's your blood money." Alicia began weeping hysterically, yelling, and threatening to call the police. Jeremy stepped in and gently explained her that the house was exclusively in John's name, that they had signed a prenuptial agreement before getting married, and that she had no legal right to be there. Howard finally got in Stephen's face, forcing him up against the garage door and calling him a lowlife. Kyle and John waited at my beach house. I sent him the word pineapple. Finally, he informed John that it was time to return him to his true home. Kyle described John as a jumble of emotions, including rage, relief, anxiety, and remorse. He was driving wildly, speeding, slowing, and then speeding up again. He continued to murmur to himself, revisiting the last 8 years of his life in his thoughts, attempting to make sense of it all. He was scared of what this could do to Jenna. When they arrived at the house, it was quite the sight. Alicia and Stephen's belongings, including clothing, furniture, and golf equipment, were strewn around the front lawn. The neighbors were outside, watching the entire event. It felt like a yard sale from hell. Alicia stood there, red-faced and enraged, yelling at John. She was blaming him for everything, claiming he was wrecking her life and was a horrible guy. Stephen stood behind her, gazing down at the ground, as if humiliated. He didn't say anything. John did not even recognize them. He strolled right by them, as if they were invisible. He went into the home. It was disturbingly silent. Of course, the furniture remained, but everything else, all the small personal touches that made it their home, had vanished. It was like coming into a set model home, not the one he'd shared with his family for years. He moved from room to room, slowly taking everything in. The emptiness was the worst part. He told me later that was when it hit him. They were genuinely gone. While the turmoil erupted at John's house that day, Jenna was safe at her best friend's house for a playdate. Her friend's mother was one of the few parents at Jenna's school who saw through Alicia's act and was always sympathetic to John. She had planned this playdate knowing what was going to happen at the house, because we had told her about it. She returned perplexed. John needed to explain everything. "Is Uncle Stephen my true father?" she asked. John felt nauseous. Then she asked, "Don't you love me anymore?" He broke down, telling her that nothing could ever change his feelings for her. But then Alicia returned, seized Jenna by force, and we couldn't stop her. John spent the first night alone. The next day, he told us he had ended up sitting on Jenna's bed, marveling at her toys and drawings. It was one of the most challenging things he'd ever done. He spent the following few weeks in his daughter's room, and it was a blur. John wasn't doing well. He had both good and bad days. I believe that seeing a therapist helped him. He attempted to keep himself busy by focusing on his work. He began playing his guitar again, which he hadn't done in years. He even went surfing a few times, hoping to relive part of his former life. We, his pals, supported him every step of the way. We frequently checked on him, made sure he was eating, and hauled him out of the home when necessary. The biggest worry that troubled John, the one he couldn't shake, was, what does Jenna think of me now? He was consumed by the dread that she blamed him, that she believed he had abandoned her. He kept wondering, does she believe I abandoned her? Will she ever forgive me for what occurred? He couldn't ask her directly just yet. He had missed her school dance presentation, which she had been practicing for months. He felt bad about it, but he didn't know how to confront her or explain why he hadn't been there. The guilt was crushing. He simply wanted to cuddle his little baby and tell her everything was fine, but he wasn't sure whether it was. He wasn't sure if he'd be okay. However, John could not have fought this fight alone. None of us could have handled something like this on our own, and it wasn't only the guys who rallied around John. Our spouses were also great. They observed how much John was hurting and stepped up big time. They didn't just say they were sorry, they did something. They confronted Alicia immediately. They made it clear to her that they understood exactly what she had done and would not allow her get away with it. They posed a formidable challenge. They also cared for John. They put together a care box for him, complete with his favorite snacks, novels, and a handwritten note from each of them expressing their support. They took turns fixing him dinner, ensuring that he ate something other than takeaway. They made sure he wasn't alone by inviting him to family gatherings and movie nights, anything to lift his spirits. They treated him like family because that is who he was. I don't think John expected this kind of support, and it made a significant difference. It demonstrated that he was not alone in this fight. We, his pals, had also been quietly preparing. We had been combining our money since we knew John would need an excellent counsel. We had done our research and located someone who specialized in high-conflict divorce and custody situations. This lawyer was known for winning and obtaining outcomes. We presented John with a retainer fee, explaining that we were all in this together. John hesitated at first. He was frightened of making matters worse for Jenna. He was frightened of losing her entirely. He kept saying, what if I fight this and lose? What if she ends up hating me even more? We understood his concerns, but we refused to give up. We reminded him that being a father was about love, being present for your child, and providing a secure and nurturing environment. We told him that he needed to choose to be Jenna's father every day, no matter what. We persuaded him that he deserved to be in her life, and she deserved to be with him. Eventually, John consented. He was still afraid, but also determined. He was prepared to fight for Jenna. He wanted the judge to understand the truth about Alicia and Stephen, including their falsehoods, manipulation, and greed. He wished to protect Jenna from them. The divorce procedure was a nightmare for John. The lawyer we hired predicted it would take 6 to 8 months, but it ended up taking about 18 months. Alicia battled him every step of the way. She opposed everything, including the asset distribution and custody arrangements, and even attempted to claim that the house was partially hers. It was not. John acquired it from his grandma before they got married. She dragged out every single meeting, misscheduled appointments, and repeatedly requested paperwork extensions. Every time we thought it was nearly done, Alicia threw another wrench in the works. She sought to imply John was an unfit parent because he worked too much. Rich, coming from someone who has been sneaking around with his sibling. She even attempted to use his drinking against him, despite the fact that he had only recently begun drinking frequently after learning of her betrayal. But when John's lawyer showed all of the fake documents to the court, things became serious quickly. Alicia falsified John's signature on at least 10 distinct loan documents totaling more than $200,000. The judge saw this as more than just a divorce issue. It was outright fraud. They discovered evidence that she had been moving money to Stephen for years, using fictitious business invoices to conceal their activities. The district attorney became involved after John's lawyer provided the material. Alicia eventually faced criminal accusations for fraud and forgery. She attempted to imply that Stephen had pressed her into it. She ultimately agreed to a plea deal that included 3 years of probation, obligatory financial counseling, and repayment of every dime she had stolen. The judge also limited her visitation rights with Jenna to every other weekend, during daylight hours. There were no overnight stays or trips out of state for Jenna, and all visits were overseen by a court-appointed guardian. It was harsh, yet considering what she'd done, she got off easy. Stephen had less luck with the court system than Alicia. When the proof of financial fraud was revealed, he was charged with faking documents and stealing John's money, just like she was. But the judge didn't buy his excuses. Stephen was sentenced to 2 years in jail, while Alicia received probation. He, like Alicia, had to repay all they'd stolen, but being in jail prevented him from doing so immediately away. Stephen and Alicia's relationship came apart dramatically when they no longer had John's money to play with and were instead arrested. Alicia began blaming Stephen for everything, claiming he had deceived her. Stephen couldn't take being broke. They had a massive fight in court, yelling about how they had ruined each other's lives. After 16 months of misery, John finally got divorced. We went out to celebrate on the day it was finalized. John did not say anything that night. He just sat there, looking fatigued and relieved. It was over. He might now begin rebuilding his life. Jenna, that's the bit that tears my heart the most, was struggling with things for a while. Who would not? A therapist helped her comprehend that Stephen was her biological father, but John was still her father. John told me about a conversation they had where Jenna questioned if she could still call him dad. He claimed he cried for an hour after that. She didn't want much to do with Stephen, which astonished everyone but John. She rapidly realized that Stephen had contributed to the harm of her father, the only real father she had ever known. Stephen tried to give her expensive gifts during supervised visits, but she refused them. Smart youngster. She told the court-appointed supervisor that she did not want to spend any time with Stephen at all. Life gradually returned to a new normal. We had one more picnic at my beach property, which served as a sort of celebration. John thanked us for all we had done. He made a self-deprecating joke, indicating that he was finally recuperating. He was playing with the youngsters, throwing them in the air and making them giggle. It was evident how much he enjoyed being a father. He looked at us and said, "You guys are my family." And he meant it. We were more than just friends. We were brothers, pulled together by this strange, incredible event. If there is a moral to the story, it is that good friends will be there for you no matter what happens. Even if your life collapses, they will be there to assist you pick up the pieces. I took legal action against my sister-in-law after she tampered with my prenatal medication because I refused to name my baby after her ex-husband. My husband Luke, 29M, and I, 29F, are expecting our first child. After years of struggle with infertility, we were overjoyed to learn that I was pregnant. However, what should have been a happy occasion turned into a nightmare because of my sister-in-law, Lila, 34F, who had a terrible history, including a painful divorce after having an affair with her ex-husband's brother. While her ex-husband Joe moved on, Lila stayed unmarried, holding on to the concept of him as a member of the family despite the affair. Lila looked delighted and wanted to be a part of my pregnancy. Initially, I assumed she was simply delighted to be an aunt, but her pleasure quickly took an unusual turn. She continued offering baby names, but they were all variations of Joe's. Despite my uneasiness, I attempted to explain to her that Luke and I had previously decided not to name our kid after anyone in the family. I wanted something unique and interesting. Lila was hurt, but I assumed she'd understand. However, she continued to send us baby name lists related to Joe, believing that it would honor the family and be meaningful to them. I set boundaries, but she did not follow them. Then things took a worrying turn. I had a little pregnancy concern and was provided medicine. Lila volunteered to pick it up for me, and I agreed. The next day, after taking the prescription she provided, I felt dizzy and sick. I ended up in the emergency room, where doctors determined that the medication I was given was not what I had been prescribed. It was a considerably higher and riskier dosage for pregnancy. Initially, I assumed it was a pharmacy error, but my suspicions rose as Lila was the one who received the pills. I called her to see whether she had noticed anything unusual. Her response astonished me. She laughed at first, saying she chose a higher amount on her own because she wanted me to pay for not naming my child after her ex. She began laughing, but then went on to add that she received a bigger dose since she believed it would benefit me more. She spoke it carelessly, without regard for the potential ramifications. I was very irritated. I ended up in the ER, and she didn't appear to realize how severe her actions were. She stated she only wanted to help. I informed her that what she did was unlawful and dangerous, and it may have harmed me and my kid. Only then did she begin to apologize, but it seemed insincere. At that point, I realized I had to act. After discussing it with Luke, we decided to take legal action. We filed a police report, documented everything, and notified her that we would be pursuing charges for tampering with my prescription. I believed that this was the only way to make her understand how terrible the issue was. This circumstance has undoubtedly strained relations within the family. Lila is attempting to paint herself as the victim, claiming she had no idea it would upset me. But I can't accept it. If she truly cared about my health, she would not have changed my medicine without my knowledge, especially since I am pregnant. Some families believe we are going too far by involving the police, claiming that she was only trying to help. However, tampering with drugs is a severe matter, and good intentions do not excuse it. Now I'm torn. I'm worried I'm overreacting, especially since some family members are upset with me and claim it's harming our family. However, I believe she breached a significant threshold that cannot be overlooked. What she did may have hurt me or my baby. If I let this go, it would feel like I am enabling her to intervene in my life and jeopardize our safety simply because she felt she was helpful. I hate that it has come to this, but I feel like I have no option. Perhaps suffering legal consequences will make her realize how serious her acts were. Still, I'm questioning everything, and I'd appreciate any other perspectives. So, Reddit, AITA for pursuing legal action against my sister-in-law for interfering with my meds simply because I refused to name my child after her ex. Update 1. Hello everyone, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your concern regarding my health. This means a lot to me. I'm feeling a lot better now, luckily. My physicians have kept a tight check on me, and I am now back on my original medication, which is safe for my pregnancy. I wanted to give you an update on my problem with my sister-in-law Lila. Since I mentioned pursuing legal action against her for interfering with my medicine in my last report, things have shifted in unexpected ways. I was still absorbing what Lila had done and dealing with the ramifications when she contacted me. She called to apologize, stating she didn't intend for things to escalate and thought she was helpful. Initially, I wanted to trust her. I thought she was sincerely remorseful for interfering with my meds, but just as I was about to accept her apologies, she said something that completely took me off guard. She dismissed me, saying that I should realize that she merely wanted to help. It felt false, as if she was attempting to transfer blame rather than accept responsibility. That wasn't the worst part. Shortly after our conversation, I began hearing reports from other family members about what Lila had said. She was telling everyone that my baby wasn't Luke's. She said this was the reason I did not want to name the baby after a family member. I couldn't believe it. Not only was she attempting to spin the tale about her activities, but she was also putting my marriage and my child's paternity in the confusion. When I learned about this, I was filled with rage. Lila's lies were making me mad. I was attempting to protect myself and my pregnant baby, and she was spreading lies to justify her behavior. I questioned her directly, questioning why she had made such an accusation. Instead of accepting responsibility, she dismissed it as a misunderstanding and stated that she did not mean it that way. It was difficult for me to accept. Lila frequently reduced her behavior and deflected blame to others, and this seemed like just another example. She seemed to want to divert attention away from her irresponsible behavior and make me appear to be the problem in the family. The manipulation was annoying. I kept thinking about how I was attempting to protect my child and have a good pregnancy, only for her to cast doubt. After speaking with Luke, we realized that we needed to act. Luke phoned various relatives to explain the situation, claiming that Lila was spreading misinformation. We needed to protect our youngster and clarify any misconceptions about our family. The aftermath has been difficult. Some family members have shown their support, while others have reprimanded us for generating unnecessary drama. It's very frustrating since they don't comprehend the entire situation. This is more than simply names and Lila's feelings. It is about keeping my child safe. I feel like I'm battling on two fronts. Lila's manipulation and the family's misunderstandings. Lila's determination becomes clearer as time passes. She is sticking to her story, trying to portray herself as the victim. I overheard her at a family occasion telling others that I was overdramatic. The more she bends the facts, the more determined I am to remain solid. I never expected to have to approach a family member about something like this, especially at such a terrible moment in my life. Lila's behavior has also impacted my interactions with other family members. Some families are concerned about how this will affect future gatherings and relationships. I appreciate their desire to keep things peaceful, but at what cost? Do I have to pretend as if everything is fine while my sister-in-law makes false statements about my marriage and child? I won't do that. I've spoken with friends outside the family, and their advice has opened my eyes. Many people have encouraged me to remain strong and take notice of everything Lila says or does that could harm my family. It's unsettling to think about how far she'll go to prove her point or manipulate the circumstance. Now I'm trying to concentrate on my pregnancy, but I can't stop thinking about Lila's acts. I understand my right to protect my baby, but I'm also concerned about how this family strife may damage my child in the long run. Will kids hear unpleasant things about their aunt, which could harm our family's reputation? I am so frustrated and fatigued. If things get out of hand, we may have to take more drastic measures. Update 2. Hello everyone. It has been 6 months since my previous post, and I have a lot to tell you about what has been happening in my life lately. I'm on bed rest since my pregnancy has become hazardous. This means I should stay in bed as much as possible and minimize stress. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law, Lila, is making it difficult for me to rest. I feel like I'm in a nightmare. This is a sensitive time for me, and all I want to do is focus on my health and getting ready for our baby. Instead, I'm constantly concerned about what Lila will say next. Luke has been amazing throughout this. He supports me every day and makes me feel protected. He understands how badly this is impacting me and has attempted to address Lila about her actions. After months of watching me suffer, he realized he couldn't take it anymore. He and his parents contacted Lila and told her to stop telling lies. They informed her that if she didn't comply, she would be entirely cut off. We all thought that this would help her comprehend how serious the situation was and modify her conduct. Unfortunately, it had the opposite result. Lila refused to listen and made everything worse. She acted like the victim, claiming we were overreacting and that she was simply trying to help, whatever that meant. It was difficult to think she could twist the facts like that, especially given her previous behavior. I knew I needed to watch out for myself and my kid, but it was exhausting. Lila arrived at our home a few days later. I was lying in bed when I heard a big smash on the front door. Luke said, but before he could speak, she barged in. I was afraid. She began shouting, accusing me of wrecking the family. I was horrified and recognized how bad things had become. Luke swiftly stood in front of me, insisting that she go. I appreciated him stepping up, but it made me realize how hazardous the situation was. Lila finally departed, and I was afraid. I had no idea what she was going to do next, and I hated feeling this way in my own home. After discussing it with Luke, we determined we needed to take decisive action. We needed to defend ourselves from Lila. We agreed to file a restraining order against her. This was something we never imagined we would do. It felt drastic, but we couldn't ignore reality any longer. We needed to make sure we were safe, especially with the baby on the way. Obtaining a restraining order is not straightforward. We needed to meet with a lawyer, who advised us on what measures to take. We started collecting evidence of Lila's actions. It was difficult to recall all of the mistakes she had made and said, but we knew they were significant. We documented every incident in which she disseminated misinformation and made threats. Meanwhile, my anxiousness worsened. Being on bed rest gave me too much time to ponder, and I was concerned about how Lila's behavior would affect our baby. I also thought about how this could affect our family connections in the future. The prospect of raising a child in such an uncertain atmosphere was frightening. At the same time, Lila persisted. She continued to propagate her vile rumors. I began hearing from other family members about what she was saying, which made me feel sick. I wanted to enjoy my pregnancy, but instead I got caught up in the commotion. Luke did all necessary to keep me safe from the circumstances. He contacted family to explain the situation and clear up any confusion. Some family members were supportive. Others were not. Some others said we were generating too much drama by taking legal action and that we should just get along. This frustrated me since they didn't realize how bad Lila's behavior was. This wasn't just family gossip, it was about our health and safety. Lila's activities have also had an impact on our relationships with other family members. Some others are concerned about how this would impact future family gatherings. I understand that they want to keep the peace, but I can't just act like everything is fine while Lila spreads lies about us. I will not let her destructive behavior dictate our lives. I've also started telling friends outside the family about the predicament. Their support has been essential. They advise me to be tough and keep track of Lila's actions. They make me understand that I am not overreacting and that I have every right to safeguard my child. It's good to have a support network beyond my family, especially when things get stressful. We are working on securing the restraining order, but I am also trying to focus on my pregnancy right now. I truly hope we receive the restraining order because Lila's presence in our lives is becoming a hazard for everyone. I'll keep you folks updated on the results. Update 3. Hello everyone, it's been a few weeks since my previous update, and I have a lot to tell you about what's been happening. We ultimately received the restraining order against Lila, which is a huge relief, but things were pretty stressful before that, and I'd like to share that with you. Lila emailed me before we received the restraining order, which was a huge mistake. In her message, she threatened to harm me and my baby if I followed through on the restraining order. I was stunned. It was difficult to imagine that someone I thought of as family could say anything so cruel and dangerous. It seemed like she was attempting to intimidate me into quitting up. The email was filled with claims that I was the one ruining the family, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. Reading that email made me feel strange. I felt terrified and angry. How did she believe it was acceptable to threaten me? It was difficult not to let anxiety take over. I continued to be concerned about how her threats might affect my pregnancy and mental health. I couldn't let her dominate my life anymore, especially because I wanted to focus on my health and prepare for my baby. Luke was naturally angry when I showed him the email. He couldn't believe Lila had gone this far. He instantly instructed me to save it as proof. He realized we had to take her warning seriously, so we started organizing to consult with our lawyer. It was exhausting to deal with all of this while trying to remain optimistic throughout my pregnancy, but I knew I needed to be strong for my baby. While we were working on the restraining order, I couldn't stop thinking about how Lila's behavior had altered. What began as a silly quarrel had escalated into serious threats, and I was very hurt. I'd always thought of her as family, but now she appeared like a stranger who intended to hurt us rather than serve us. After a few difficult days, we went to court to file for the restraining order. I was apprehensive, but I knew it was important. With the email as proof, I thought the judge would understand how severe our situation was. During the hearing, I detailed everything that had occurred, from the prescription to the gossip to Lila's threats. I noticed that the judge was paying careful attention and taking notes. When we received the restraining order, we felt a big relief. However, I realized this was only the start of a lengthy road. Despite the restraining order, I am still uneasy. Lila had previously demonstrated her unpredictable nature, and I was concerned that she would try to contact me again, especially given her recent conduct. The concept of constantly glancing over my shoulder is exhausting. I want to enjoy my pregnancy, but instead I'm overwhelmed with anxiety. Luke and I discussed how to proceed. We knew we needed to maintain our distance from Lila, but we also didn't want to isolate ourselves from the rest of the family. This was a sensitive position. We recognized we needed to be careful what we informed our families. We didn't want to engage them in the drama, but we also needed to keep ourselves safe. It's been a wild ride since the restraining order was issued. We must consider how to handle future family functions, especially because Lila understands how to manipulate circumstances so that she appears to be the victim. Friends who still speak with her say she's attempting to elicit sympathy by stating we're overreacting and that I'm trying to turn everyone against her. It annoys me that she keeps spreading lies about us. When I hear from family about what Lila is saying, I become concerned and upset. I just want to enjoy this period in my life without any turmoil. It's hard to keep focused when I know she's attempting to cause trouble. I need to remind myself that I am not the problem here. I am doing everything I can to protect my family, and I refuse to let her rule our lives any longer. Update 4. Hello, everyone. It's been a few weeks since my previous post, and I have a lot to discuss. First and foremost, we had our baby last month, and I couldn't be happier. Holding our baby temporarily alleviated all of our fears. The joy of parenthood is beyond words, and we are grateful for our healthy kid. We named him Neil, and he's already won our hearts. Despite our joy at the arrival of our new baby, my sister-in-law Lila became concerned. As you may know, we previously secured a restraining order against her for her unpredictable conduct and threats to me and our child. It felt good to have legal protection, but I didn't anticipate things getting worse. Lila unexpectedly showed up at our house shortly after Neil's birth. I was still healing from having birth and adjusting to being a new mother. Luke had gone out on a quick errand, and I was at home with the baby. While I was in the nursery comforting Neil, I heard a big bang at the front door. At first, I thought it was someone else, but when I looked out the window, I was shocked to see Lila there, looking frantic, screaming, and demanding to see her little Joe. She was literally screaming at the top of her lungs, saying I was not letting her see her baby Joe and that she would call Child Protective Services on us if I didn't allow her in. I was so afraid. I didn't need her to arrive unexpectedly. I needed to protect my child, and I was terrified because of her. I hastily went for my phone to call Luke, but before I could touch the send button, I heard the door being pushed open. She'd gotten in. I had no idea how, but I could hear her calling my name. At that moment, I felt completely powerless. I knew I had to keep Neil safe, but I was still healing from the delivery. I took a long breath to relax myself. I elected to take Neil into the bedroom and close the door behind me. Lila was shouting, and I could hear it. She sounded quite angry. It was clear she was not going to back down easily. I saw no other way out, so I dialed 911. I told the operator what was going on, including Lila's restraining order and my concern for my own and my baby's safety. While I was speaking, Lila continued beating on the door, begging to see Neil. It was terrible to realize how desperate she was to contact us. Fortunately, the cops responded shortly. I was relieved to hear sirens approaching because it meant aid was on the way. When the officers entered, Lila was still attempting to break into the room. They intervened right away, pulling her back and attempting to calm her down. I finally opened the door after the cop told me Lila was being held down. I saw the officers speaking to her, but I was too shaken to hear what they were saying. I stayed in the bedroom, keeping Neil tight and trying to console him because the loudness was making him cry. I felt terrible that he had to experience such chaos so early in his life. The police were speaking with Lila, attempting to figure out why she had gone to our house and what her objectives were. Lila's predicament turned out to be worse than I anticipated. The police informed me that her neighbors had reported her for trespassing many times. She had been acting suspiciously, attempting to enter their homes and cause havoc. The officers also discovered that she had multiple outstanding tickets and had been arrested for drunk driving just 2 weeks before she arrived at our place. It was astonishing to discover how troubled she was. Lila was arrested for violating the restraining order. They felt it was significant, particularly given her recent actions. After the officers left with Lila, I felt safe enough to breathe again. Luke arrived shortly after and was noticeably concerned when he noticed the police cars outside. He rushed in to discover me and Neil. As soon as he walked in, I felt a great weight lifted off my shoulders. I described everything that had transpired. Luke was outraged that Lila had gone to our house, but he was grateful that the cops had handled it. We have taken steps to tighten our security. We've added more locks to the doors and installed a security camera outside. I wanted to ensure that we were safe from any further incidents. The news of what happened traveled swiftly, and family members soon called out to check on us. I felt grateful to everyone who helped and encouraged us during this difficult period. However, it was difficult to ignore Lila's persistent attempts to elicit sympathy. She began to seek sympathy from anybody willing to listen. She modified the story, portraying herself as a misunderstood family member who simply wanted to visit her nephew. Some friends who had distanced themselves but remained in touch reported that Lila insisted we were overreacting and making her life difficult, portraying herself as a victim. She conveniently ignored the threats she had made, as well as the severe reasons that prompted the restraining order. Her attempts seeking attention became increasingly desperate. As the truth came to light, we discovered that this was not her first encounter with the authorities. After Lila's arrest, we discovered that she had a far longer criminal past than we had previously imagined. She had been involved in numerous theft and fraud cases over the years, which family members had kept hidden to avoid disgrace. This was stunning, especially because Luke and I learned how much she had lied to us. It caused us to doubt if much of what we knew about her was true. Her attempts to elicit pity began to fail as more family members and friends learned about her past offenses. The compassion she sought was replaced by judgment and disappointment from practically everyone around her, as she realized she had broken numerous lines and endangered her family for her own pride. Most people had concluded they were done with her. They realized that the situation was far worse than she had represented, and her lies crumbled as her criminal record and unpredictable behavior became public. Lila is now cut off from the majority of her family because she is back in jail for her most recent misdeeds. After years of giving her opportunities, those close to her eventually recognize her true self. Luke and I are relieved that she is finally out of our lives. We have made it clear that we will not tolerate any further contact or give her another opportunity to manipulate or harm us. The entire scenario has been difficult, but knowing that we can move on with our lives, free of her manipulation and disruption, is a tremendous relief. We have taken precautions to safeguard ourselves, and especially our infant, from any future drama she may attempt to generate. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, we can fully focus on our family and raising Neil in a safe, loving environment. Lila is finally gone, providing some serenity to our family after months of tension and fear. Luke and I can now concentrate on providing a safe and loving environment for our child, free of the chaos and manipulation that Lila caused. Our family and friends have been really supportive, and it is comforting to know that we all agree on the importance of maintaining strong boundaries. It's awful how things progressed with someone we once trusted, but we've learnt the value of safeguarding our family and setting firm boundaries when necessary. It's reassuring to know that Lila and her previous activities are no longer a part of our life, and we don't have to worry about her causing any problems. This event has taught us to value our peace and safety, and that is our goal going forward. This will hopefully be my last update here. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me and encouraged me during this time. I really needed a stranger's opinion on what was going on to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Everyone who commented on my postings was really helpful. After 5 years in an engagement, my fiancé's hurtful comment and doubts about marriage ended our relationship. This morning, his mother called me in tears. Dominic and I have been dating for little over 5 years, and we have been engaged for the past 8 months. We met at a housewarming party through mutual acquaintances, just two folks who got along because they disliked IPAs and liked 90s cartoons. After dating for a year, Moving in after 2, adopting beans at 3, and getting engaged last summer, our relationship progressed. Simple proposal, Saturday morning hike to our favorite vista, where he eagerly removed the ring box from his pocket. Yes, I said. We quickly chose October and have been preparing everything, mostly me while he nods. Dominic started making odd statements while arranging our wedding 3 months ago. Uncertain, not negative. When I showed him various places, he'd say, "That's a lot of money for just one day," or, "Do we really need to invite all those people?" I ignored it as male behavior or economic concerns. Later, my wedding texts were answered late. When I sent him caterer options, he'd reply hours later with "looks fine," or "whatever you want." When I asked if everything was well, he'd say he was busy at work, his construction company had some big projects. Last month, he spent more time with coworker Paul. They had beers or watched games at Paul's house after work. Again, nothing special, but more often. He seemed distant when he got home, checking his phone more and paying less attention. I tried to tell my best friend, Lena. She suggested a date night to bond over pre-wedding worries. Last Friday, I made reservations at a new Italian restaurant downtown, wore a nice dress, not something fancy, just something I hadn't worn in a while, and bought Dominic's favorite beer to keep in the fridge. Date night failed. He barely spoke during supper. He revealed that he wasn't sure he was ready when I mentioned finalizing our honeymoon plans. Everything, from honeymoon to wedding and marriage. Shocked. He was uncertain after 5 years together and 8 months engaged. He recalled talking to Paul about how marriage changes things and mentioned Paul's brother's terrible divorce when I asked. As the conversation grew, I tried not to make a noise in the restaurant while feeling like my life was falling apart. We barely touched our entree. Silence and tension permeated the ride home. He avoided talking at our apartment, saying he wanted time to think before sleeping on the couch. The next morning was awful. We navigated a shared Airbnb like strangers. He suggested lunch with Paul and coworkers in downtown sports bar The Rusty Nail and watch the game. Too emotionally exhausted to protest. A few hours later, Lena called to tell me to leave the flat. We had coffee, and I unpacked everything. Lena listened intently, suggesting Dominic was worried about the wedding. I usually decompress by wandering Target after coffee. I bought useless throw pillows and shampoo because retail therapy is therapy, right? By early evening, I was relaxed and went home. Kyler, Dominic's co-worker whom I met at the business Christmas party, texted me as I drove into our apartment complex. The message inquired about my well-being and noted that the Rusty Nail had gotten strange. I called Kyler instead of messaging. He was initially hesitant to talk, but after some coaxing, he did. The boys had been bugging Dominic about wedding plans, and when Paul asked if he was ready to be with one woman forever, Dominic expressed doubts. Dominic, evidently drunk, said, "If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you." Paul asked him what was holding him back, and Dominic laughed. Kyler told me he and other guys confronted Dominic about the comment, but Dominic got defensive and said they couldn't take a joke. I cried for 20 minutes in my car after that call. The man I loved for 5 years, whom I believed loved me, joked about my appearance as a reason he wasn't ready to marry me. Dominic was asleep on the couch as I entered, still in his clothes. The place reeked of old beer. I locked beans in the bedroom. I smelled Dominic's apology meal, coffee and bacon on Sunday morning. He looked hungover and sheepish, like food would fix everything. I told him what Kyler told me, and his face dropped. He claimed ignorance and inebriation to lessen the situation. He said he murmured something dumb to stop the boys taunting him for being strapped down. He exacerbated, guys being guys, by supporting them. We discussed him humiliating me in front of his friends, but he denied that was his goal. He said that he was worried about wedding costs and pressure, but I couldn't get over how he exploited my beauty as a cruel joke. I couldn't stay at his flat. I took my handbag to Elliot's apartment. My brother has always been my refuge in tough times. When I told him what happened, he was furious and ready to face Dominic. I calmed him by stating I needed space and a place to stay until I thought things out. Dominic texted apologies and invitations to chat at home throughout Sunday. Only once did I say I needed time. I phoned in sick on Monday because I couldn't handle taking dentist office calls while pretending everything was fine. About 9 a.m., Valerie, Dominic's mother, called Monday morning. We've always gotten along, and she's been more supportive than my mother, who lives in Florida with husband number 3. She seemed agitated, saying Dominic had called her the night before and I needed to know something. She asked if we could meet somewhere to chat, so I'm waiting in my car outside the coffee shop where I'm supposed to meet Valerie in 15 minutes, wondering what else to know and if my 5-year relationship is over. I never thought I'd write this. I keep looking at my engagement ring, wondering whether I should have expected this. Was I wrong, or did things shift so fast? Should I follow Valerie? How could she say anything to fix this? First, I'd like to thank everyone for their overwhelming support of my initial piece. I wasn't expecting thousands of comments. I tried to read as many as I could between weeping bouts and stress-eating emergency Oreos from my brother's pantry. I met Valerie, Dominic's mother, and I'll discuss it at the end of this update. So much has happened in the past 2 days, and I'm still processing everything. I called in sick again after publishing on Monday. I had just 2 sick days in the preceding year and sounded like death on the phone, but my supervisor was nice. I spent most of the morning in Elliot's spare room, storage closet, reading your comments and organizing my thoughts. At lunchtime, Lena brought sandwiches from a deli near her hospital. Despite not eating since Sunday, I forced myself to consume a few bites. Lena softly reminded me I couldn't ignore Dominic forever. We lived together, shared accounts, and had to talk. She was right, I couldn't stay at my brother's place forever, especially since Elliot's girlfriend was coming over for dinner. I didn't want to be Taco Tuesday's sad third wheel. I took a shower, grabbed one of Elliot's hoodies, don't judge, it felt wonderful, and drove home after Lena left. I practiced my speech the whole time. I would remain calm, adult, and receive answers without yelling or crying. Dominic's truck was in our parking spot when I pulled in. He should have worked. My stomach knotted as I approached our second-floor apartment steps. I opened the door to find him on the couch in sweatpants, looking exhausted, surrounded by wedding planning binders I'd made over the last 8 months. Little Trader Bean snuggled with him. He was surprised and relieved to see me and stated he was taking personal time off. He was probably reviewing all the wedding preparations to figure out how he bungled it so badly. I stood by the door, not ready to sit next to him, and told him that wedding plans wouldn't change his mind. We had a long, difficult conversation. He apologized again for the bar comment, calling it terrible and not believing it. He said he was trying to appear cool in front of his buddies when I asked why he would say something he didn't believe, which made me even angrier. Before the bar incident, I reminded him during dinner that he had misgivings about our wedding even when sober. He admitted to being anxious about a late work assignment, Paul's marriage horror stories, and our wedding money. He didn't tell me his problems until they exploded in the worst way. As we talked, he revealed a new fear, becoming his father. Dominic rarely talked about his father, who left him at 12 after having an affair with a coworker and moving to Arizona to start a new life. Dominic had always said it didn't bother him, but he now admits he was worried about a genetic predisposition to cheat or abandon his family. I explained that he was not his father and that genetics do not affect relationships. His comment was telling. He wondered if he could pledge eternity when it seemed impossible from his childhood. He hesitated to say he had spoken with Kyler when I asked if he had told anyone else. Since Kyler joined the group, they had become closer, and Kyler had relationship troubles. This explained why Kyler called me about the bar incident. He knew Dominic's concerns. When I asked Dominic about his problems, the conversation soured. He was honest. He was scared, anxious, and unsure about marriage while loving me. He said he kept thinking about how his parents were happy until they weren't and didn't want to put us in that situation. I wondered why he hadn't spoken up sooner. He said he was afraid I wouldn't think he loved me enough. I saw the irony. Hiding his anxieties created the situation he wanted to avoid. I inquired if his joke about my appearance was a genuine lack of interest, and he said he'd always thought I was gorgeous. He mentioned our first meeting at the housewarming party and my green sweater and his terrible beer pong skills. He said he made the comment out of insecurity and a desire to look in control in front of his friends rather than stuck. I asked a crucial question as we talked. Were his doubts against marriage in general or just marrying me? His sluggish response told me everything. He finally admitted that he was worried about marriage and commitment but also about our long-term compatibility. This hurt more than comments about my beauty. He was still unclear if we were compatible after 5 years. He explained how we had evolved since our early 20s. My increased need for preparation versus spontaneity and his abandoned hopes of launching a business. He asked if we had grown closer or apart, even though I told him partnerships change. I was emotionally weary by then. I told him I needed time to think about his public humiliation, secret fears, and now our compatibility anxiety. He told us to try therapy or couples counseling, but I insisted on separation. He noticed my phone vibrating as I packed more clothes. I found 3 Valerie missed calls. With everything going on, I forgot about our coffee date. Dominic looked worried after I mentioned this. My mother called crying the morning before, stating she needed to talk about something urgent. After calling her Sunday night, he replied clearly. When I asked what he told her, he was pale and reluctant to look at me. He made vague references to their fight and his doubts, but I was dubious. When pressed, he said he couldn't explain and suggested I ask his mother. I called Valerie after leaving. She reacted instantly, worried I hadn't attended our meeting. I replied I was with Dominic at the flat. She requested that we meet promptly since she had important news. Her voice seemed strange when I mentioned being with Dominic, which reinforced my fears that I was missing something essential. After agreeing to meet Valerie in 30 minutes, I asked Dominic what his mother knew that I didn't. Remorse and resignation filled his face when he looked up. He said he should have told me anything and suggested I go to his mother, promising to leave when I returned. I rapidly packed a week's worth of clothes, toiletries, and my laptop. Dominic told me he loved me at the door, but I said love isn't enough. Karina, Dominic's sister, called me on my way to Valerie. She was worried about Dominic and me after hearing from Paul about the bar situation and seeing that Dominic wasn't responding to her texts when their mother was unhappy. Karina looked surprised when I told her I was meeting Valerie and asked if it was about Maria. Name struck me like a truck. What about Maria? Karina's horror and hasty retreat suggested she had accidentally revealed something significant. She apologized and recommended me to listen to Valerie, but refused to elaborate despite subsequent attempts. Valerie was waiting at a window table when I entered the coffee shop parking lot. She had red, puffy eyes. I thought what she would say would change everything. My phone buzzed with a text as I reached her table. Dominic said, "Whatever my mom tells you, please remember that I do love you. I just got scared and made terrible mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me." I put my phone away, breathed deeply, and sat across from Valerie. Second update. Thanks for supporting my earlier posts. Reading your comments is comforting and overwhelming. Many of them have gone unanswered, but I read them and appreciate the advice. Lena's flat is my new writing spot. I hated returning to Elliot's or our apartment after meeting Valerie yesterday. Lena's pull-out couch is slightly cozier than Elliot's storage room futon. Pepper, her cat, doesn't mind me bawling over my oatmeal at 2 a.m. The Valerie appointment. Where do I start? The coffee shop was packed on Tuesday afternoon. Computer-using students filled most tables at a nearby community college after classes. Valerie received a corner booth with high backs for privacy. She changed since our monthly family dinner 3 weeks ago. Her gorgeous hair was unkempt, and she wore no makeup. Valerie has always worn mascara and lipstick in my 5 years of knowing her. This is her routine, just like others need coffee to start the day. She stood and hugged me when I came, smelling like her lavender dryer sheets. Instead of a caramel with extra whipped cream, I requested a black coffee. It felt improper to order anything fun for this talk. After some awkward small talk, Valerie got to the point. Dominic broke down Sunday night and called her. She understood his concerns about commitment and becoming like his father, but Maria drove his behavior more immediately. I almost choked on coffee. Dominic's new project coordinator, Maria? What about the woman he mentioned briefly? Valerie hurriedly ripped a napkin into tiny pieces to explain Dominic's love for Maria over several months. Dominic told his mother there was no physical contact, but an emotional connection made him rethink our relationship. I sat there trying to understand this, feeling like the coffee shop was tilted. Creating a timeline in my head while Valerie spoke. Maria started working with Dominic around New Year's. I briefly met her at the March corporate holiday dinner. Dominic had already changed, he was more aloof, checked his phone more, and spent more time with coworkers. What I thought was more stress from his big task was more. When I asked Valerie why she was telling me this instead of protecting her son, she cried. As she explained, her marriage dissolution became clear. Before Dominic's father moved to Arizona with a coworker, there were months of alienation, harsh words, and staged disputes to create distance rather than face truth. She left me in the dark as Dominic took the coward's way out to avoid repeating the past. The bar comment became clear, not intoxicated folly, but a subconscious attempt to harm our connection so he didn't have to make the hard decision. We chatted for over an hour. Valerie recounted how she battled to save her marriage after finding the affair and blamed herself for not being enough. Before I parted in the parking lot, she said, "The hardest lesson I learned was that you can't make someone choose you. They either do or they don't, and anything in between is just delaying the inevitable." Afterwards, I stared at my phone in my car for a while. Dominic sent 3 more texts, all variations on "I'm sorry" and "I love you," but Maria was not mentioned, hinting that the truth was buried. I called Lena instead of responding and begged to stay at her flat. She did not hesitate or ask questions. She simply said she was setting up the pull-out couch and would pick up dinner on her way home. Everyone needs that kind of friend in a crisis. Finally, I wrote to Dominic. "I know about Maria. Don't contact me again until you're ready to tell me the complete truth. I'll be collecting more of my things tomorrow while you're at work. I blocked his phone number for the night. I wanted time to think without his explanations. On her way to Lena's, Karina called. Valerie had overheard Dominic and Paul discussing the matter last Thursday. The chat confirmed and expanded on her information. She made her brother pledge to tell me the truth after the weekend. He had broken his promise. Karina's unwavering support amazed me most. Despite being Dominic's sister, she supported me. My relief was profound. I was worried about losing Dominic and his family, who had become like family to me. Lena's flat was perfect that night, a neutral space where I could exist without explanation. Dining on the living room floor. Her coffee table was covered in online class papers as we watched a baking competition we didn't understand. Its simple normalcy saved me during my emotional turmoil. I used my phone to relive 5 years of vacations, holidays, and everyday selfies with Dominic after Lena went to bed. Our engagement photos showed us smiling like lottery winners. I was mentally planning for the next day, going to the apartment while Dominic was at work, packing more stuff, possibly talking to the landlord about breaking our lease, when an unknown number texted me. "Hi, Margot. This is Maria. I know you have blocked Dominic. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more to the story, which you should know. Only the two of us." My pulse raced as I glanced at the letter, wondering what else could be and why this woman would want to tell me directly. I scribbled a response after what seemed like an hour but was actually minutes. Where and when? Third update. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for their overwhelming support in my previous posts. Your comments have helped me through restless nights more than you realize. Yes, I'm alive. Sometimes are easier. My visit with Maria went differently than expected. Probably impartial, we met at a little brunch establishment near the park. She was nervously checking her phone when I arrived. She seemed less polished and more human than at the corporate party. Her ponytail was messy, and she wore little makeup. Her unease caught my attention immediately. Shouldn't she have been more confident if she got involved with my fiancé emotionally? She kept fiddling with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. The talk presented two major surprises. First, Maria didn't know Dominic liked her until Paul casually mentioned it last week. She said she and Dominic worked on a project together, occasionally texting after hours but never violating limits. According to her, she never flirted with him or promoted anything other than friendship. She showed me their work-related messaging history and the occasional meme, nothing romantic or inappropriate. She had a 3-year boyfriend who occasionally joined them for happy hours. The second insight affected Paul. He was apparently intentionally causing trouble. Maria overheard him at work encouraging Dominic to consider his options before settling down, calling her someone who gets Dominic better than I do. She explained that Paul had been telling everyone at work that Dominic was having second thoughts about the wedding, joking about him being trapped and missing out on his freedom. After our meeting, I felt unusually peaceful. Maria wasn't the monster I expected. She was a victim of Dominic's manipulation and frailty. Before leaving, she said, "You seem like someone who understands their worth. Don't let anyone make you doubt it." My perspective and tactics changed after the encounter. The focus shifted from Dominic and me to Paul's detrimental influence, Dominic's family, and my role in this. I emailed Karina later to organize a neutral family gathering at her place because I wasn't ready to be alone with Dominic. She agreed fast. I remember yesterday's lunch. Her small yet pleasant flat was organized by Karina. She ordered simple pasta and salad from the Italian restaurant near her building. Valerie arrived first, then Paul. He attended because Karina insisted, and Dominic, who looked exhausted, did too. First 20 minutes were terrible. We ate pasta at Karina's dining table, talking about the weather and her new coffee table. The elephant in the room was almost eating our meal, but no one wanted to confess it. Finally, Valerie broke the silence by reiterating that we were there to face what had happened and find a solution, not to socialize. That opened the floodgates. I told Paul all I learnt from Maria, watching Paul's expression. The uncertainty and defensiveness in his face said it all. He tried to help his friend, but Karina cut him off immediately. Dominic sat calmly, staring at his unturned pasta. He confessed that Maria had been pleasant, but he had twisted it out of fear of becoming his father. Valerie recoiled at that comment. Dominic seemed embarrassed when I told the joke at the bar. He said it was his cowardice, not Maria. Paul was teasing him about being whipped, so he shouted something mean to appear cool. Dominic says my appearance never mattered. Paul dismissed it as guy talk, but Karina reminded everyone that Dominic and I were getting married in 3 months. That simple comment, a reminder of our fast-approaching wedding, hit me hard. After sending save the dates and paying deposits, my dress was hanging in Lena's spare closet for final modifications. I subtly remarked that I no longer believed the wedding would happen. The room quieted. Dominic began to protest, but I stopped him. He stated he spent the week trying to figure out how we got here. I realized it wasn't simply Maria, that joke, or Paul's harm. Dominic was dishonest with me and himself. I said that I had ignored his lack of interest in wedding arrangements, his increased time with Paul, and his emotional isolation for months. I made excuses because it was easier than facing the truth, but I deserved someone who believed in me and didn't need a family intervention to figure out their feelings. Valerie and Karina said shut up when Paul made a snarky remark about my drama. Dominic said he loved me but was frightened of messing up. He already had, I said. We talked for hours. There were tears, yelling, especially between Karina and Paul, and hard truths. Old wounds reopened and new ones formed. When everyone was emotionally exhausted at midnight, we had to cancel the wedding. Our 5-year romance ended. Not a fight or a dramatic exit, just a sense that something fundamental had broken between us. Trust. It might be rebuilt someday, but not for an October wedding, not with Maria still working at Dominic's company, and not with that joke lingering. Karina brought me back to Lena's and said my relationship with her and Valerie hadn't altered. She stated I was still family despite Dominic's actions. After returning to Lena's apartment, I sat on the pull-out couch in the dark, realizing that 5 years had passed, the wedding had been cancelled, and the future was unknown. Didn't cry right away. I made a list on my phone's notes app. Call the venue to cancel, the deposit is likely gone, return the ring, contact guests, relocate out of the apartment, change relationship status on social media. Past 2 a.m. Shuffled out of her bedroom, Lena. She heard me enter and checked on me. She sat beside me in the pull-out and threw her arm around my shoulders as I told her the wedding was off. We sat like that till daylight, not talking and just living in my new craziness. Dominic texted me this morning to meet to discuss the apartment lease, separating our accounts, and what to do with our shared furniture. So mature, so final. Elliot also asked when he could help me pack. My brother is always practical. My mother asked if she should cancel her flight to the wedding after hearing from one of my relatives who follows Karina on Instagram. My finger feels heavy with the ring. Twisting it unconsciously was a nervous habit I didn't realize. Nothing fancy, just a round diamond in white gold. Dominic chose it because it reflected our classic relationship. I called the venue this morning, ironically. The coordinator was kind but firm. The deposit is non-refundable so close to the date, $8,000 lost. Trips, new clothes, and outings have been cut for nearly a year. My cerebral half cringes at the waste, while my emotional side is indifferent about money. Karina texted me that she had found a photographer who might move our money to a future event. Valerie promised to tell relatives about the cancellation to avoid awkwardness. Small kindnesses afterward. Paul replied with a non-apologetic text stating things happen for a reason and I'd find someone better. I deleted it without replying. Maria wrote me a quick message apologizing and assuring me that nothing happened. Strangely, I trust her. Dominic's anxieties and Paul's manipulation seem to have made her collateral damage. Simple reminders like my wedding planning binder in my tote bag, our shared Spotify soundtrack for the celebration, and my laptop honeymoon research folder are the hardest. A lost future in small pieces. I went to work against Lena's advice to take a mental health day. Reddit browsing and overthinking appeared more distracting than answering phones and filling insurance claims at home. Coworkers have been surprisingly normal, either unaware or respectfully ignoring my puffy eyes and missing engagement ring. Tomorrow, Dominic and I will exchange keys and discuss the place at a coffee shop. Since my name is on the lease, he'll stay with his cousin until he leaves. Another practical discussion about leaving a relationship. Part of me doubts this. Last month, we debated reception music and tried different cakes. Separating kitchen appliances and disputing who keeps the PlayStation. Valerie stated at dinner, endings are rarely clean or perfect. Most of the time, they're messy, sad, and complicated. She should know. After Dominic's father left, she rebuilt her life, had 2 children, and found happiness. You wouldn't believe she'd been through so much looking at her now. Maybe there's hope. Now I'm taking things day by day. Tomorrow, I'll manage the flat and money. Next week, I'll start house hunting. The future after that is murky but real. Karina texted me to meet for coffee this weekend. She said her longtime family friend Kenzo had offered his holiday cabin if I needed a getaway to clear my thoughts. Dominic's family's unexpected help is much appreciated. Accepting Kenzo's offer is up in the air. Something inside me wants to process in peace. I understand I need Lena's realistic sympathy, Elliot's protective big brother energy, Valerie and Karina's complex allegiance right now. I'll stop using my wedding countdown app. Will not pin reception decorations or practice Dominic's surname signature. That future is over, but I'm hoping for something else. It's weird to write this final report from my new apartment. It's been 3 months since the family dinner that ended my engagement, 3 months of rebuilding my life in unexpected ways. Since several of you have requested an update, here it is. The good, the bad, and the unexpected. First, practicalities. After we broke up, Dominic left our shared flat within a week. Elliot and Lena helped me pack his possessions while he was at work, placing everything neatly labeled in the living room for him. It was strange to divide 5 years of shared existence into his and mine. The coffee maker he got for his birthday, the throw blanket I bought on our weekend trip to that small mountain town, and the framed photos we hung on every wall made the apartment feel hollow, like a stage set. After 2 more weeks, the leasing management let me out for a month's payment. To escape our relationship's ghost in every room was worth the money. Finding a new home was harder than planned. My single-person budget is tighter due to the bad rental market. My 1-bedroom apartment across town, farther from work, has a tiny balcony where I'm growing herbs in dollar store pots. The basil fades, but the mint grows. Against all odds, I saw that as symbolic. A financial adjustment. When planning for one, car insurance, streaming subscriptions, and even groceries become my responsibility. I now use coupons, buy store brands, use a spreadsheet, and think twice before ordering takeout. Growing up lessons I never thought I'd need at 29. Marriage merchants were surprisingly accommodating. The venue withheld our deposit but sent me a nice card wishing me happiness. The florist refunded half our payment despite their no refund policy. In a shocking but thoughtful move, the DJ suggested his rehab working brother. I keep the engagement ring in its box in my dresser. Dominic advised me to keep or sell it because returning it was bad karma. Not sure what to do with it. I sometimes forget it's there, and other times I open the box and stare at it, wondering how something so small could have had so much potential. Social media had its own horror. I waited 2 weeks to update my relationship status to avoid questions. I completed it at 2 a.m. On a Tuesday, well-meaning friends asked, "What happened?" Distant relatives prayed, and former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly entered my direct conversations with phony fear that felt like interest. I wrote a brief, ambiguous comment about mutual decisions and requested privacy, then turned off notifications and threw my phone across the couch. Later, I posted a photo of my new apartment keys with the caption "New Beginnings." It got fewer likes than my engagement announcement, but it felt more authentic. Since the breakup, we've talked about practical issues like mail that arrived at the wrong place, the shared cloud storage account we forgot to separate, and returning a borrowed air fryer to his sister. Each conversation was polite but tense, like acquaintances forced to make small talk in an elevator. He still works for the same job, is friends with Paul, though Karina says they had a falling out recently, and Dominic contacted me last month and asked if we could meet. We hadn't seen each other since the key exchange at the apartment, and I was curious about his goals. We met in a coffee shop near my new apartment, as Lena half-jokingly suggested. He was leaner, had larger circles under his eyes, and wore a shirt I didn't recognize. After 10 minutes of stiff small talk about work and the weather, he took out a journal and said, "I've been seeing someone." And my heart stuttered before he said, "A therapist." The notebook was part of his therapy, daily reflections on patterns and habits he wanted to change. He'd been reflecting on his relationship with his father, his friendship with Paul, and how he treated me. He didn't ask for forgiveness or recon. "I should have done this years ago," he said. "Maybe things would have been different." He was the most self-aware I'd ever seen, and I hoped treatment would help him, not for my sake, that ship has sailed, but because carrying so much unresolved familial pain was exhausting. "I'm glad," he said. "They need good people in their lives." One of the oddest parts of this separation has been keeping in touch with Dominic's family. Valerie texts me weekly, usually with hilarious memes or garden updates. Karina and I get breakfast every other Sunday at this small cafe midway between our apartments. I'd like to think this tragedy has given me a profound awakening, allowing me to rediscover myself. Some days, I feel emancipated, relieved that I didn't marry someone who could harm me so carelessly. Other days, when my hot water heater breaks or I can't reach something on the high shelf Dominic would have retrieved for me, I miss the practical benefits of collaboration. I've also started therapy, not because of the breakup, but because it made me realize how much I compromised myself in that relationship, how many red flags I'd ignored because they were wrapped in familiarity, and how much of myself I'd sacrificed to accommodate Dominic's needs and insecurities. My therapist suggested I restore some of my lost self. Dating again seems far off, even though my coworkers have started suggesting I meet this great guy they know. I'm still learning how to be comfortable in my own company. The most unexpected resulted from canceling our honeymoon. We'd planned a 10-day trip to the coast and rented a little home with a veranda overlooking the water. Then Lena suggested something radical. Go on the trip alone. You've never traveled alone, she said. Maybe it's time. 10 days alone in a lovely home designed for two sounded like the start of a tragic indie film, but the more I thought about it, the more appealing it seemed. I could wake up whenever I wanted, explore without limits, and read a book in one sitting. So I'm going to a honeymoon cabin alone next week. I've packed 3 paperbacks, downloaded several podcasts, and bought a new bikini for comfort rather than appearance. My mother thinks I'm crazy. Elliot offered to come with me, but I declined. Karina suggested I use a dating app to see who's out there. Perhaps, but probably not. I went grocery shopping the other day when our song played over the store's speakers. 3 months ago, I would have hidden in the frozen food department, holding back tears. This time, I felt only a faint ache, like if I was pressing on a bruise that had mostly healed. Progress, not perfection. I'll be honest, my new apartment's shower has unusual temperature fluctuations. I killed another basil plant yesterday, and I still occasionally text Dominic about something funny before realizing we don't do that anymore. At Christmas dinner, my parents sat me at the kids' table, proving they saw me as less. Fed up, I left, ignoring their guilt-tripping messages. I had a feeling this Christmas dinner would be a fiasco from the moment I walked in. It's not like I didn't know what I was getting into, it's always the same. This year, I was determined to persevere in the face of challenges. Let me introduce myself. I am Maya, the youngest of 4 siblings. However, being the youngest has never meant anything nice or cute in my family. If anything, it has always been the reason people speak down to me. I'm used to it by this time. I'm 28, but to them, I'm still a baby. I don't have a partner or children like my older siblings, but I'm successful in other ways. I have a career I'm proud of, a small but devoted network of friends, and a sense of freedom others don't understand. Marriage and children have always been more important to them than anything else. Christmas dinner has always been a major event in our household. It's one of the rare times of year that we all get together at my parents' house, a large old Victorian home that has been in the family for generations. A house that appears great in family photos but is a pain to clean. I've always despised the location. It's cold and distant, much like my parents. But it is a custom, so I go every year, even though I would rather be somewhere else. I go because of family. I arrived just after everyone else. My oldest brother, Chris, had already arrived with his wife and 3 children, loudly setting up the table as if they owned the room. Then there was Amy, my sister, with her husband and their baby, always flawless, polished, and flaunting their ideal lifestyle. My parents were in the kitchen, scurrying around, pretending to have everything under control but still making everyone feel like they were 5 years old. As usual, I entered discreetly, hoping to escape the drama that was bound to ensue. When my mother spotted me, her face brightened up with that phony smile she always gave me, the one that made me feel like I wasn't really welcome, simply tolerated for the sake of the holidays. "Maya, sweetie," she said, giving me an embrace that seemed more compulsory than genuine. "I'm delighted you could make it. Grab a seat." I hardly had time to react when my father called from the other room, his voice booming with power, as if to remind everyone that he was still the man of the house. "Dinner's almost ready. Chris, Amy, please get the kids situated." I stood there for a time, not sure what to do. I wished to say something, but it was Christmas. I did not want to cause a scene, not yet. That's when my mother, in her subtle manner of making everything feel like a lesson, spoke again. "Maya, why don't you sit at the children's table? We've got a unique place for you among the cousins." I froze. I could not believe it. My mother, in her sweet syrupy tone, had just asked me to sit at the kids' table, which they set up every year with a mismatched assortment of chairs, paper plates, and half-hearted decorations. I looked across to the dining room. The adult table was nicely decorated, with exquisite china, wine glasses, and candles that gave the atmosphere an elegant, grown-up feel. My dad sat at the head of the table, looking as smug as usual, surrounded by my married siblings. There is no room for me, however. I returned my gaze to my mother, attempting to suppress the rage that was welling up within me. I could feel the familiar sting, the one I get whenever they try to remind me that I'm not good enough in their eyes. This wasn't the first time they'd made me feel small, but it was unique. This wasn't a casual remark or a side-eye. This was deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing. I attempted a smile, but it did not reach my eyes. "Okay, Mom." "Thank you," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled as well, but her attitude indicated that she was unconcerned with how I felt. This was all about maintaining appearances and ensuring everything was flawless. I don't believe she recognized how much it hurt to be rejected like this. Without saying anything, I walked up to the children's table, my stomach churning with each step. It wasn't like I anticipated anything different, but for a little moment, I hoped they'd treat me like an adult. I sat in the small plastic chair, surrounded by children who were more concerned with their mashed potatoes than the awkward hush I sensed in the air. My cousins were in their own little universe and utterly ignored me. I looked at the plate in front of me, it was messy and unappetizing. It was as if they hadn't even tried to make it appear good. I swear I saw one of the toddlers slip a portion of broccoli beneath the table. I wanted to shout. That's when it struck me. This wasn't only about the table. This was not about tradition or the Christmas spirit. This was about them thinking I was less than. They didn't even bother to hide it anymore. And at that moment, something inside me snapped. I stood calmly, the weight of my decision weighing against me. I did not need to say anything. I didn't need to yell or cause a scene. I just grabbed my coat, slung it over my shoulder, and strode right to the door. As I opened it, my mother's voice rang out, almost late. "Where are you going, Maya?" she inquired, her tone tinged with bewilderment and annoyance. I did not glance back. "I'm leaving," I announced, my voice frigid. "Enjoy your dinner." The door banged behind me. The cold air hit me like a wave, but I didn't mind. My car was parked just down the street, and I had already left. My parents' panicked calls faded into the distance as I drove. For hours, I wandered aimlessly until I arrived at a quiet diner. Sitting alone in a booth, I ordered something warm, my hands still trembling from adrenaline. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so angry and relieved all at once. That's when my phone started exploding. Messages. I missed calls. As usual? I glanced at the screen. It was my family. Chris, Amy. Everyone, including my father, was phoning and messaging, but the one that stood out the most came from my mother. "Mom. Where are you? We need to talk. This is not humorous, Maya." I felt a smirk tug on my lips, the type that had been building all evening. I was not about to pick up. Not yet. The ball was now in my court. They had no idea what was coming. I put down my phone and sipped my coffee, watching the steam curl up into the air. What should I do next? That was the question. And believe me, they wouldn't like the answer. I waited in that diner for what seemed like an eternity, with my phone beeping every few minutes. The texts became more urgent, with each one attempting to get me back into their little game. Chris sent the first one. "Chris. Maya, this is not funny. Where are you now?" Then another from Amy. "Amy. Mom is freaking out. We simply want you back." Next came my father. "Dad. Come on, stop acting like a child. Get back here." I did not respond. I did not owe them an explanation. They had made their decision when they treated me as a second-class person at their special supper. All I wanted was to be treated like an adult, but they decided I was still a baby and needed to be hidden away with the toddlers. After about an hour, I picked up my phone to check my messages again. The tension was building, as if they were realizing I wasn't going to give up easily. My gut twisted when I saw my mother's text. "Mom. Maya, I do not understand why you are doing this. Your siblings are concerned, and it's destroying Christmas. Do not make this about you, you are being selfish." I stared at the message for a time, feeling a surge of rage rising again. Selfish? They were the ones acting selfishly. The entire night had been about their image and aspirations. I had only been a component in their flawless little puzzle. However, to her, I was the problem. Typical. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh or cry at this point. Instead, I just blocked her number. She was not going to make me feel guilty, not this time. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on myself. This was not a spontaneous reaction. I had a plan. Every one of them had wronged me, and tonight I was going to make sure they understood how badly they had messed up. Later that evening, after finishing my lunch and the adrenaline had subsided a little, I decided it was time. I opened the family group chat, where they generally vent about everything and anything. There had already been 12 mails concerning me. "This is ridiculous. She's acting like a child. What's the big deal? We didn't mean it like that. I think she's just overreacting." I scrolled over them, my fingers itching. I knew I could simply ignore it. That would have been the easiest way out. But no. I needed them to feel it. I needed them to understand that how they treated me had consequences. I began typing slowly at first, but my words soon increased up speed. "You guys don't get it, do you? You really don't. This isn't just about a seat at the table, it's about how you've treated me my entire life. Like I'm not good enough, like I'm invisible unless you need something from me. I'm the only one who doesn't get praised for following the same script you all did. Get married, have kids, play the game. But I've built my own life, and I'm doing just fine. So maybe it's time you all recognize that. I waited before sending, allowing the weight of my words to sink in. For the first time in my life, I felt in control of the situation. I stopped begging for their approval. I was not going to be their small project. I pressed send. It did not take long for the text to pour in. My phone buzzed repeatedly, each message more frantic than the last. The first one came from my father. Dad. This is crazy, Maya. You're being dramatic. Get over yourself. Amy swiftly followed. Amy. You can't just leave like that without causing everyone to be sad. What did you think would happen? Then Chris joined in. Chris. We did not do anything wrong, Maya. You need to calm yourself and return before you ruin everything with your fury. Each message landed harder than the last. They still didn't understand it. They were still trying to blame me, claiming that it was my fault that they treated me so badly. I did not respond. Instead, I did something I had been thinking about for a long time. I launched the Photos app on my phone and began scrolling. There it was. An old photo of our family from years ago, just before everything started to go apart. A great Christmas photograph, with everyone smiling and cheerful. Everyone but me. Of course, I was there, thrust into the image as an afterthought. But I knew the reality beneath their smiles. I understood what had been said. What was implied. All these years. I took that shot and promptly placed it on the family group chat. But this time, I included a caption. Here's to the perfect family, always making sure the youngest one knows their place. Then I shut off the phone. I let the silence settle about me, feeling liberated from their restraints. I had no idea what would happen next, and I didn't care. They pushed me too far. And now I was finished. I didn't check my phone for several hours. It was almost weird sitting there without the incessant buzzing and pinging of their urgent texts. The silence seemed strangely calming. For once, I wasn't the one attempting to please them. I stayed awake late, just thinking. I knew exactly what they'd be saying behind my back, even if they didn't have the courage to say it to my face. My siblings, particularly Chris, undoubtedly believed I was exaggerating, certain I was just being the drama queen of the family again. But I was not. I was finished performing the character they had written for me. What if they couldn't understand that? Well, I'd let them deal with the consequences. I eventually plugged in my phone to charge and sighed as I checked it again. The notifications were as relentless as I had expected. Dozens of missed calls, texts ranging from angry to apologetic, but they were all tinged with frustration. I scanned through them, reading their words with grim delight. They were unraveling. And I wasn't about to make it simple for them to put things back together. Mom sent the longest text. I don't know what's gotten into you, Maya. You're acting like this is about us when it's really about you. You can't just run away from your family like this. You're tearing us apart. Please come back. Christmas is ruined without you. This isn't who you are. There it was. Guilt trip. The attempt to make me the bad guy. They always made me feel like I was the one making trouble by demanding to be treated like an adult. Then came my father's message. This is childish. We need to talk about this when you calm down. And of course, Chris. If you think walking out of dinner was going to make a statement, you're wrong. You're making it worse. You owe us an apology. An apology? For what? For finally sticking up for myself? For demanding to be treated equally in a family that only respected me when it suited them? I was not sorry for anything. But then Amy left a message. It differed from the others. It was neither angry nor demanding. It was almost imploring. Maya, I know you're upset, and I understand why. But this isn't the way to fix things. You're my sister, and I love you, but you're pushing everyone away. Please just come home. We can talk about this. It's Christmas, for God's sake. I looked at her words for a while. I'd always been close to Amy. When I was a kid, she was the one who defended me when the others banded together against me. What about now? Now I was unsure whether I could ever trust her again. Not after everything she'd let go. Everything she had silently supported when she knew it was wrong. I took a deep breath while my thumb hovered over the screen. I wanted to respond. I wanted to reassure her that I wasn't being theatrical or making problems. That I was advocating for myself. I was tired of being treated as if I were the family's perpetual child, but I did not. Not yet. Instead, I typed a quick response. I'll think about it. I sent it and put down my phone, feeling a stab of remorse. But I shook it off. I knew I couldn't return to that table unless their perceptions of me shifted dramatically. And I wasn't going to let them brush it under the rug like it was nothing. The next morning, I received even more texts. Some were from family friends who wanted to know where I was. They were really worried, but I didn't want to explain myself to anyone who wasn't involved in the situation. And then there was a torrent of calls from my mother. But one message stood out. It came from Amy. "Maya, I've been talking to Chris and Mom, and they're pretty upset. And honestly, so am I. We are a family, and you cannot simply distance yourself from us. If you don't return home soon, things will get worse. Please don't make this any more complicated than it needs to be." Increased pressure, increased manipulation, and I still didn't grasp what I was going through. They were not hearing me. They were not listening. I knew exactly what they were doing, what they have always done. They were attempting to guilt me into returning. Trying to make me feel like I was the source of all the problems, when, in fact, it was their inability to view me as anything other than the youngest kid that had been the problem all along. I grabbed up my phone, launched the group chat, and stared at the screen. My fingers paused over the keyboard as I considered what to say. I wanted to convey my point. To let them understand why I was fed up with their mistreatment of me. However, the fact was, I wasn't sure I was ready to return yet. Not until I knew they had changed. Not until I felt confident they recognized me for who I truly was. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was from my father. "Maya, we need to discuss. You can't keep running away. You're going to regret this." It hit me like a ton of bricks. Same terms. Same deceptive guilt trip. I could feel the tension rising, as if the walls were closing in on me. But I did not answer. Not yet. The day dragged on, and with each hour, I felt the weight of their texts. Their calls. Their attempts to get me back into their orbit. Despite many phone notifications, I maintained my distance. I'd made my choice. And I was not going to let them bully me back into the character they had set me in. As the evening progressed, I found myself sitting alone, staring at the empty chair across from me. If I had gone back, I would have sat in this chair. A part of me, an old part, wanted to surrender. To go back. To make it nice. It was Christmas after all. It's time for family. To be united. However, I couldn't shake the idea that if I went back now, it would be like saying I was not worth fighting for. That all those years of being put aside were perfectly okay. That they were correct. That I was simply being dramatic. I considered the snapshot I had uploaded in the group conversation. The one where I was forced to grin and pushed to the side like an afterthought. That image had said what I needed to say. I wasn't only upset about tonight. I was outraged since this was how they treated me every year. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every family function, I was banished to the back seat and never allowed a voice. They expected me to simply accept it like I had in the past. But not this time. The phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. I paused, my finger hovering over the decline button. But something inside me urged me to pick up. Perhaps I was finally open to hearing what she had to say. Perhaps I was just curious how far they would go to make me feel bad. I took a deep breath and pushed the green button. "Maya," my mother's voice filtered through, exhausted and frustrated. "We need to talk. This has gone on long enough." I remained mute, letting the words hang in the air. She waited for me to reply, but I said nothing. "Look," she added. "We're family. You're making things more complicated than they need to be. I'm not sure what's gotten into you, but you're driving everyone away. Your father is upset. Chris is upset. Amy." She stopped, evidently struggling to find her words. "I'm upset, Maya." I nearly laughed. Were they upset? After everything they had put me through, they had the arrogance to say this? I could feel the old rage rising up, but I swallowed it, not wanting to show her how much she still had control over me. "I'm not pushing anyone away, Mom," I responded calmly but firmly. "I just stopped playing your game. I am not going to sit at the kids' table, be treated as if I am invisible, and pretend everything is fine." She was silent for a moment. I could practically hear her analyzing what I said, trying to find out how to convert the conversation back into a guilt trip. "You cannot just leave us waiting like this. Your father is attempting to make Christmas memorable. The entire family is here. It's not just about you, Maya," she eventually added, her tone almost imploring. "You're breaking the family apart. You know, I've spent my whole life attempting to make everything work. Trying to fit into the mold that you all made for me. But no one ever saw me, did they?" I responded. "You did not want me as an adult, Mom. You wanted me to be a small kid forever. And tonight was the final straw. She was silent again, and for the first time, I could see she was listening to what I was saying. It was more than just a seat at the dinner table. It was about how I had been treated throughout my life. I'm sorry, Maya, she finally admitted. But her voice was faint and hesitant. I didn't know you felt that way. It took me a long time to realize it too, I said, relaxing my tone slightly. But I'm done pretending. There was a long pause, and I could feel the tension in the air, even through the phone. For the first time in my life, I felt understood. I felt in control of the situation, and it felt great. It felt empowering. Finally, she sighed. I understand. I honestly do. But I'm still your mother, and all I want is for us to be a family again. I let her words linger in the air for a time. There was a moment when I would have raced back to them, hoping to make everything right. But I was not that person anymore. I'd discovered the hard way that they wouldn't change unless I forced them to see me. To consider me an equal. I'll think about it, I replied, echoing my previous remark. But this time, things were different. It was not about me giving in. It was about taking my time. It was about them recognizing that I was more than simply an afterthought. That I was not going to allow them drag me back into their toxic environment without reform. All right, my mother murmured softly. I hope you return soon. I just want you to be happy. I hung up the phone and sat back, taking deep breaths. It was not over. It was not a neat and tidy resolution. However, for the first time in a long time, I felt in control of the situation. I was not going to let them walk all over me anymore. And perhaps, just maybe, they would finally see me for who I truly was. I set down my phone and glanced out the window, watching the snow fall softly in the darkness. I wasn't sure what the future held. But for the first time in years, I felt truly free. And what about Christmas? It was not ruined. Because for the first time in my life, I was going to take care of myself. The rest can wait. As I sat there, watching the snow fall softly outside, I couldn't help but wonder, did I do the correct thing? Or did I simply walk away from something that could have been fixed? I found out my parents' will left everything to my lazy brother, despite my supporting them for years. They demanded money and smeared me online. My name is Jake, and any questions I had about my place in my family were eradicated the day I learned about the will. It wasn't even a dramatic sit-down in which my parents revealed the news. No, I discovered it purely by accident, by pure dumb luck. It happened a few months back when I was at their house, which I had been helping them pay for the past 5 years. I was in charge of the mortgage, food runs, and even house repairs, while my brother Eric did nothing. And by nothing, I mean nothing. No work, no obligations, just lying around, waiting for life to throw everything on a silver platter. My folks appeared to be more than willing to provide. That day, I was assisting my father with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure out how to do things for themselves. He had requested me to scan some documents for him, legal and financial, and I didn't hesitate, until I saw it. There was the estate plan and last will and testament folder in the stack. I don't usually snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I had been the one to ensure they had a roof over their heads. It wasn't out of the ordinary to ponder how things were set up for the future. So I opened it. And that's when I noticed the words that made my stomach plummet. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, and their property. There isn't a single mention of me, except from some general phrases like loving both of their sons equally. That is why they ensured that their golden child would inherit everything, while the son who kept them afloat received only a footnote. I felt foolish. Here I was, bending over backward for them, making sure their bills were paid on time, making sure they never went hungry, while they sat back and planned for a future in which I received nothing. And Eric. He wasn't simply lazy. He was entitled. He never raised a finger to assist them, never donated $1, yet he had persuaded them that he deserved everything. Perhaps because he was the younger son. Perhaps because they had always pampered him. Perhaps he understood just how to influence them. Whatever the reason, they'd made their decision. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands quivering with wrath and betrayal. How long did they plan this? Had they always planned for me to be their free financial safety net, offering nothing in return? Have they ever appreciated what I accomplished for them? I wasn't sure how long I'd been sitting there, but my father saw I wasn't scanning anything. Hey, Jake, what's taking so long? He inquired, going back into the room. I didn't even bother hiding the will. I raised it up and looked him in the eyes. So this is how it is? I inquired, my tone unnervingly calm. Everything to Eric? After everything I've done for you? My father's face paled for a second, but then he sighed, as if I were a small child having a tantrum. Jake, it's not what you think. Really, I snapped. Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, helping with groceries, fixing the house up, while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters? Dad was embarrassed, but instead of explaining himself, he simply said, "It's complicated." That was it. There was no apology or attempt to defend it beyond those two worthless sentences. Just a poor apology and an eager expression, as if he was waiting for me to drop it and return to being their personal ATM. I should have gone out right then, but I wanted to hear from each of them. So I called out for my mother. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, she didn't respond well. She had the decency to appear guilty, but what she said made my fury boil. "Jake, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she whispered softly, like if she were doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent. Eric, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That was the moment something inside of me shattered. They were not even ashamed. They understood exactly what they were doing, and they believed it was entirely right. They had spent years encouraging Eric's laziness, and now they planned to reward it by giving him everything while dismissing me as an afterthought. I took a long breath, tightened my jaw, and placed the will on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice strangely calm. "Glad to know where we stand." Then I turned and marched out of the house, disregarding their protests and slamming the door behind me. They had made a decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I did not return to their place after that. I did not call. I did not check in. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own dang problems. If they needed to mend something, they could figure it out. If they wanted groceries, they could make their own way to the store. Most importantly, what if the mortgage bill showed up? Well, I wasn't the one paying for it anymore. The hush lasted almost 2 weeks. At first, I guess they thought I was simply pouting and would crawl back like usual. Perhaps they expected me to calm down and apologize for questioning their choice. But as the days passed with no news from me, and, more significantly, no financial assistance, you could almost sense the change in their mood. Then, one afternoon, my phone vibrated. Dad messaged, "The property taxes are due." That was it. Number, "Hey, how have you been?" Number, "Sorry for what happened." Number, "We really appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold transactional message, as if I were still a walking ATM that they could access whenever they wanted. I stared at the computer for a time, almost amused by how predictable the results were. Did they truly believe they could just demand money like nothing had happened? That I would continue to serve as their financial safety net, even after they made it quite plain that I was disposable? I gently typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes until my mother called. I let it ring. Then another text came in. Mom messaged, "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to speak. Now that their debts were stacking up, a reality was finally staring them in the face. I waited an hour before responding. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it." I figured it was the end of the day. I had made my position clear, and no part of me felt terrible about it. But then Eric decided to join in. His text arrived late that evening, and the moment I saw his name appear on my phone, I knew it was going to be something nasty. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was met with utter entitlement. Eric messaged, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal, just help them out like you always do." I almost laughed. Is this not a significant deal? He actually seemed as if I had no right to be upset about this. I wrote back, "No, I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all." Eric messaged, "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man, it's just money." Oh, suddenly it was only about money. It didn't matter anymore now that he had the inheritance. The hypocrisy was astonishing. I shot back, "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mother texted me again, this time in full guilt trip mode. Mom messaged, "Jake, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us?" I had to take a deep breath to keep from tossing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I'd spent years ensuring that they never had to struggle, while they coddled and rewarded Eric's lazy behavior. And now that they'd had to face the repercussions of their own actions, I was the bad guy? I was not falling for it, not this time. I replied, You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you. I can imagine my mother gasping loudly. She had a knack for playing the victim, even when she was in the wrong. A few minutes later, my father sent another text, and this one made me furious. Dad messaged, "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish? The word caused my blood to boil. I'd been bailing them out for years, devoting my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I had done all a good son should do. So, how did they repay me? I made sure I received nothing in exchange. And now that I've finally stood up for myself, I'm the one being selfish. I tightened my jaw, took a big breath, and texted back. "Number, I'm done." Then I shut off the phone. They'd made their choice. They were now going to have to live with it. The stillness lasted one day. I knew my parents would not give up so quickly, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The next morning, I received a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I grimaced as I unlocked my phone to check. It was from my mother. She had genuinely asked me for money. As if I were an ATM. What is the amount? $3,500? I looked at it in surprise, partially chuckling at the arrogance. There's no message. There's no explanation. Just a cold, blatant demand for the precise amount required to cover their outstanding mortgage. They didn't even ask anymore. They just assumed I would give in. I declined without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then followed another text. Mom messaged, "Jake, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before responding. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric. Another call. Declined. Then another text. Mom messaged, "We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, this was an emergency. After years of exploiting me as a walking wallet, they were finally facing the repercussions. I wrote back. "Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter." A few seconds later, Dad joined in. He said, "You're really going to let your parents become homeless?" That one had me laughing out loud. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost comical. They weren't broke. They were not going to be put on the streets. They simply didn't want to go into their personal savings because they were accustomed to me covering everything. I disregarded them for the remainder of the day. That night, I received an SMS from Eric. Eric messaged, "Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I clenched my jaw. Did this entitled little jerk really think he could lecture me? I wrote back. "You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" His response came quickly. Eric messaged, "You know I don't have that kind of cash right now, right? So now it's about affordability?" He was fine with me draining my accounts, but whenever it was his turn, he had nothing to offer. I responded, "Guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose." No response. I went to bed feeling strangely relieved, as if I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. However, the situation worsened the following day. I was at work when I received a call from my apartment's front desk. Receptionist. "Hey, Jake, your parents are here." I almost dropped my phone. "What?" She paused before adding, "They're saying it's an emergency, and that you won't answer their calls." Oh my God. They showed up at my flat solely because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of my nose. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward moment. They're being kind of pushy. I clenched my jaw. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up and instantly received a text from Mom. Mom messaged, "We downstairs. Open the door." No question. There's no explanation, just another demand. I didn't respond. Another text message from Mom. "Jake, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I breathed sharply and stood up from my desk. They were not about to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I snatched my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood seething. I was not scared. I was infuriated. The sheer chutzpah of these guys to walk up uninvited at my house and demand money as if I were their personal ATM. Not even a phone call beforehand. Not even a half-hearted apologies. Just a straight-up ambush. They actually thought they could corner me into submission, like if I were a naive child? I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and, of course, Eric, all standing in a close formation, as if they were preparing to hold a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, Her typical disappointed mother expression locked and loaded. Dad stood rigid, hands in his pockets, his face a mix of frustration and entitlement, as if he couldn't believe I was forcing him to do this in person. And Eric, the tiny leech, had the guts to appear bored. Like the entire scenario was only mildly inconvenient for him. As if he was not the cause of any of this. When Mom saw me, she went into full theatrical. Mom. Jake. Finally. We need to talk. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Number you need to leave. She blinked, as if she was unable to absorb what I had just said. Excuse me? You heard me? My voice was calm, controlled, and firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. Dad gave a quick scoff. Are you seriously going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I gave out a frigid laugh. A petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you judged I was good enough to pay your bills but not worthy of inclusion in your will? Is that a grudge? Mom gasped and clutched her chest, as if I had just hit her. Jake, that is not fair. We merely did what we believed was best for our family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean the best for Eric? Simply say it. Silence. A prolonged, heavy silence. Eric, who had been unusually silent until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't want to get involved in this. I did not ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting go. No, you simply sit back and accept all that is given to you. You are 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face grew crimson. What the hell, dude? I stepped closer. You've heard me. Do you want to inherit the house? Begin acting like a homeowner. Do you want to be the golden child? Begin paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal banker. Eric averted his gaze, his attention drawn to the sidewalk. Mom took a deep breath and refocused her guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep. And I've been there for him longer than you have. Dad's face clouded. You're being selfish? I laughed, a genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two agreed that Eric deserved everything, while I deserved nothing. And now when it's time to pay the price for your decision, you're attempting to coerce me into repairing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice became sharper. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean I should simply accept that I was betrayed and continue to pay your bills? Because, let's be honest, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped nearer, attempting to loom over me as he had when I was a child. We reared you, Jake. We provided you with food, clothing, and everything else you needed. The least you can do is help us right now. I looked him dead in the eyes. I already have. For years. You repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lips twitched. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled and shook my head. Oh, I understand completely. I understand that I was never your family, but rather a paycheck. Silence. An oppressive and unmistakable silence. I turned to see Eric, who was still trying to be invisible. And you? What is your excuse? You had years to mature, organize your life, and contribute, but you didn't. You knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expect me to step in, right? Eric eventually snapped. What would you like me to say, man? I did not ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right, you did not ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened and then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one final guilt trip. Jake, we are family. Family takes care of one another. I stared at her for a long time before responding. Exactly. So, why didn't you care for me? She froze. There are no words, no comebacks, nothing. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door behind me. My phone buzzed before I even got back to my couch. Dad sent a new text. Wow. After everything we've done for you, are you really going to leave us? I smirked and typed back. Number you abandoned me. I'm just now accepting it. I pressed send. Then I blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them would simply make matters worse. Things quickly spiraled out of control. Less than a day after blocking them, I began receiving posts on Facebook. My parents were never very tech-savvy, but they knew how to voice their problems online, especially when they felt self-righteous. At first, I assumed it was just my parents being dramatic. After all, that was their go-to move, blowing out family turmoil for everyone to see. But as I browsed through their feeds, I noticed it wasn't just about me no longer helping with bills. The posts were camouflaged as family affection, but they were carefully veiled attacks on me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish, and how true family helps each other no matter what. A number of her friends responded that I was a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then, Dad responded with his own post. So-called family members should never abandon you when you need them the most. We gave our children everything, and this is how they repay us? My son, who should be aiding us in our golden years, has decided to desert us. He tagged me and added the passive-aggressive "I hope you're happy" at the end. The real kicker, however, came from Eric. I should have known he'd join in on the drama. He published a post full of falsehoods. Some individuals believe that family is all about money. They do not realize that family is about love and sacrifice. I would do anything for my parents, but some individuals don't understand that. They're too caught up in themselves to know that true love is aiding those who reared you. He even made a disguised shot at me. I wish some people could understand what it truly means to be family. I love my parents and appreciate everything they've done for me. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there staring at the television, stunned. How had things come to this point? They flipped the script and made me the villain, the self-centered son who refused to support his sacrificial parents, the son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard, contributed, and never complained. And now, somehow, they had convinced themselves they were right. And they were telling everyone that I was the issue. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited a few hours to ensure that I wasn't acting out of rage. But when I thought about it, I decided I couldn't let them get away with it. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to correct the record. So I grabbed out my phone and began typing. I created my own Facebook account, which I kept for close friends and true family, and wrote a lengthy update. I was not interested in playing their game. I did not want to get mired down in petty back and forths. I wanted to tell the truth. This is what I wrote. I know I've been silent for the past several days, but I can't keep it up any longer. My relatives have been spreading false information about me online. They've painted me as the villain, the selfish person who refuses to assist my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always assisted my family. I've been helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in any way I can since I was able to find work. However, there comes a moment when you can no longer give without being respected. Over the years, I've seen my parents favor Eric by giving him everything, the house, the money, and the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to continue providing without ever being treated as equal. I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be reciprocal. When I learned that my parents had left everything to Eric in their will, I recognized how one-sided our relationship had been. They did not give me a second thought. They've made it apparent that I'm only the one they can rely on when things go tough, not the one they truly want around unless it's convenient for them. For years, I've been responsible for paying for their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, bills, and even assisted with things like house taxes. And for what? To be viewed as a backup plan? I am done. I am not merely a wallet from which they may withdraw money whenever they need it. I am a human being and deserve to be respected. I've earned the right to be treated like I'm important, not just when they need something from me. As for Eric, it is time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old and has never worked in his life. He has never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have been enabling him for so long that it's no surprise he's their favorite. But here's the thing, he's had plenty of time to sort his life out. And now, it is time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. Everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents has to understand something. Every tale has 2 sides. Indeed, family is vital. However, it's also about mutual respect. I've contributed enough for a lifetime, and I won't apologize for taking a step back. This is not me turning away from my family. This is my last decision to choose myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best, but I'm done being your doormat. When I hit the post, I felt a sense of relaxation. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth. About my family, how they had used me for years, and how they had always expected me to be the one to save them, without ever considering what I needed. I wasn't going to let their story dominate my life anymore. The reactions were swift. Some people I hadn't spoken with in years came forward to show their support. A number of my cousins, acquaintances of my parents, and even some distant relatives liked the article and sent me private messages apologizing for what I had gone through. It felt liberating to finally have the truth out there, not buried beneath guilt trips and deceptive conduct. Then followed the backlash. My parents and Eric went crazy. Eric texted me, "You're a traitor? You really had to air all our business out like this? You have no respect for family." Dad called me and yelled into the phone, "You've ruined everything, Jake. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I did not regret it. Not for 1 second. I blocked them all. I was finished. And, for the first time in my life, I was free. Free of the toxic grasp they held on me for so long. As the days passed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had had enough of being treated as less than. I was tired of always having to solve everyone else's problems. And now, I was finally free to live my life on my own terms. So no, I don't feel horrible about cutting them off. I deserved better. I still do. And from now on, I've decided to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can offer them. It's time for me to go forward. For good. And I will.